Hey folks, MasakoX here, and it's time for the holiday miracle this year. Over the last few years, we've had stories running throughout the entire month of December focused around one particular subject. That being, for example, the likes of Videl being the strongest human, and Chi-Chi being the strongest human. But this time around, we're going the other way, bringing a character who wasn't human to begin with into the world and realm of humanity. Now, you might have been able to guess who that is from the title, but we got this idea from the round table and it really inspired us. We've been really keen to get this started, haven't I? And I think you'll like this too, because there have been some rumblings in the community about what might have been had Shenron not only been a Dragon Team member, but also human. Let's get the story going, shall we? Coiled within his fiery hot realm that was inhospitable to every other being that was not him, Shenron was locked within a deep slumber. The Earth core was its current home, as he seldom remembered his original living space, something that came before. For the likes of Shenron, there was no past, no future, only perpetuity. Suddenly, he then experiences a form of awakening. Of course, this isn't anything new. As usual, 7 tingling sensations were bringing him to Earth, but this time, the person at the other end was someone quite familiar. A wrinkly, old creature with a dark green hue of skin, resembling his master, but devoid of any kindness or goodness that he possessed. This was off. Something wasn't right. He began to state his wish. No, this was not right. The voice of the old man was still ringing in its enormous head.
"Now, dragon, appear before me!"
He began to talk.
I wish for...
Suddenly, a high-pitched scream could be heard. It was a childlike being, with skin as white as snow and rosy cheeks. "Make King Piccolo disappear from this!" An energy blast interrupted the wish, invalidating it. Shame, thought Shenron. So close. If he hadn't added the last part, he might have already done it. The mortals were distressed by what they were about to witness, especially the three-eyed one.
"I despise uninvited guests,"
said the old man. But Shenron had had his duty to perform. He couldn't be different or biased. He never stayed for long anyway.
"What do you wish for?"
he asked, as if he was slightly impatient, keen to get a move on.
"I wish to become young again, restore my youth and power, return to me what time was stolen. Can you do this?"
The harsh voice was loud and dominating, and also keen to get a move on, having been interrupted. To Shenron, this was a simple matter.
"As you wish."
Shenron watched as his own light enveloped the elder, who suddenly began to swell with increased musculature. His dried-out body, like a green prune, suddenly became a lot less wrinkly, and a little bit lighter in hue. He seemed very pleased with the results.
"It worked! I'm young again! I am born again!"
he said with a new strength in his voice that had previously been absent. His underlings were cheering amongst him, making sounds that were increasingly annoying for Shenron's ears, especially now the wish had been done. He wanted to return to his place of slumber and await the next time summoned him because it was getting quite regular.
"Your wish has been granted. I take my leave."
The one then called King Piccolo grinned wickedly.
There's one more thing you can do for me."
Some very quick thoughts went through the mind of the dragon. This was odd. He isn't able to fulfill more than one wish at a time. Surely this person would know this. Why was he being asked this? As the loud shout and a beam of energy from his toothy mouth connected with Shenron, he started to regret not retreating sooner. The pain was excruciating, something that he had never felt before. Who would ever attack a legendary dragon? It was as if every single atom of his being was on fire, slowly melting. Dragons should not be feeling pain, not like this. And yet, Shenron realized that, against all odds, death was slowly approaching, and getting faster. Something that was thought to be impossible for his kind. They were meant to be immortal. He was used to dwelling within the Earth's core, but the temperature here was even hotter, to the point where there was no mind in his head anymore. He couldn't think. Only perpetual, oppressive, excruciating light.
Shenron was no more.
It's such a funny thing that a mere stone statuette might hide such power within. The reality is that dragons do not simply go to the other world, as there can be no place for a creature of such magnitude between mortals. Instead, they come back to a state of eternal sleep in the place where they originated, hardly aware of what exactly was happening to them. Time is even less apparent than it was in the Earth's core. He could have been there for seconds, hours, days, years, maybe even a millennia or two. It would all feel the same to him, as his very essence had never ceased to be connected with the place, Earth, away from the mortal realm to boot. Still, a shell of stone had been left behind. Shattered was the ancient representation of an unknown mystical power. A careful movement of the hand and a little bit of adhesive here, produced by the mortals, could bring it back together. Oh, what wonders glue possess. It was pretty hilarious to see creatures of such esteem and age and legend being simply put back together again by a common object. But should modern ways of reparation not be used, or praised, or celebrated? That's why humans were so cool, he thought. Originally, he wasn't supposed to be back, as greedy and selfish mortals had been trying to use his powers for their own nefarious deeds. Instead of rewarding heroic acts, he had become the bearer of dangerous dreams of even more dangerous people who just so happened to find him constantly. He had been used to not be found for decades, sometimes centuries. Now it was almost every year. And yet after all was said and done, his master decided to bring him back after all. Weird, but okay. Something was waking him up from the endless slumber that he had accepted, from the realm that all the dragons came from, their souls coiled and tangled like the threads of fate. He was being sent back and connected with his original Dragon Balls. Was it because of that boy, that Son Goku, that he had been seeing far more often in recent years, and kind of wished that he hadn't? He then felt a shift in Kami's heart, a new hope for restoration and a new beginning. Yes, it's all becoming clear to him now. Suddenly, he feels the draw, a shift. No rest for him, no respite. He was being summoned again. Someone was wishing on the Dragon Balls. He then sees a familiar young woman with blue hair once he arrives on Earth, or was it purple? Anyway, she was the nosy one who had managed to invent a dragon radar or something. Something that has made his life slightly more hectic in recent years. You know, glue is nice, but this dragon radar? Annoying. Well, we thought you destroyed Mr. Dragon, she said, startled by his presence a little bit.
Kami saw that Goku's purpose was noble, and so he chose to resurrect me.
The clarity of his own words was surprising even for Shenron himself. Well, where's Goku? The girl asked.
Kami has chosen Goku for an important task, and he is now training upon the lookout.
The dragon paused, seeing their surprised faces.
You will see him again at the next tournament.
Who is Goku training with? Asked the three-eyed man.
You shall know soon enough,
Shenron said, though he himself doesn't experience reality as they do.
Now, state your wish.
Okay. We wish you to bring back to life all of our friends who were killed by Piccolo and his monsters, screamed the girl.
Krillin, Master Roshi, and Ajutsu,
adds the small pig-like creature with a hoarse, unpleasant voice. Wait a minute, what about all the innocent people that Piccolo killed? You should help them too, said the tall, black-haired young man.
Well, that's a lot of people, Yamcha. Give the dragon some patience,
said the pig man. Shenron roared slightly after seemingly being lost in thought.
Very well. All the people that were slain by Piccolo shall be brought back to life.
The dragon's eyes glowed red. Lightning struck, and the 7 orbs traveled in 7 different directions. But before Shenron could rest inside the core once more, he heard the call of Kami summoning him.
My friend, a moment of your time, if you please. We need to discuss something. Something important.
In the depths of the dragon's personal mindscape, Shenron and Kami were conversing. This was not a case of mere chit-chat, like in the case of mortal beings. Instead, feelings and images were being exchanged. The sight of King Piccolo tearing the Grand Serpent apart, and the number of people asking for selfish, inane, stupid wishes. On the other hand, the simple purity of Son Goku and his friends, the beauty of the word, was something they both rarely experienced. Maybe they should use words more often. Godhood could be a cage. You watch, you are called, you are tied to your duty. That was getting a bit lame, he thought. The connection between the Guardian and his dragon was almost primordial, a primal sensation, the Namekian's existence on this mortal plane. And yet, an idea was being born. An idea that would allow at least one of them to see the world they serve a whole lot closer, to help defend the power of wishes from unworthy ones. There was hesitation. No eternal dragon before had ever stepped amongst mortals. His form was overwhelming after all, his size enormous. How would he remain inconspicuous? Ah, this is what Kami said. Nobody said that he couldn't walk a couple of miles in their shoes. It had just never been done. Shenron opened his eyes, if they were in fact eyes. They were small and glowless, still keeping a bit of crimson in the irises. His body was shorter, much shorter, and he felt heavier, even though the dragon was quite sure he had lost a considerable amount of weight in the process. His arms and legs became longer in proportion to his body, with his hands becoming almost pink and weirdly flesh-like, and his lower legs gaining feet. He touched his head. There was a storm of long, unkempt green hair. The horns were still there, but much smaller. Also, he had a beard. That was a weird thing. Beard. And he realized that he was completely naked, with Kami, Mr. Popo, and Goku staring back at him. The young monkey boy was absolutely shocked, but trying to hold back a laugh.
Wow, Shenron, is that you?
The dragon opened his mouth, and his voice came out very strange. There was no boom, it was almost simian-like.
I think so. What happened?
Kami smiled at him, and with a small gesture, some simple robes appeared to cover his new, scaleless flesh. You see, Kami also has a clothes beam.
So, we were successful. Yes, Goku. This is indeed Shenron, and he will be training with you.
Wow, so cool! I get to train with a dragon!
Shenron touched the temples of his head again. It's a very odd sensation, he thought. The world suddenly felt a whole lot bigger than it did this time yesterday. Or was it yesterday? Could have been 100 years ago, I don't know. Suddenly, time just felt like a river swirling around him. He was swimming through it now instead of looking down from it from above. Everything seemed more real.
Do I still have my powers?
He scratched his head. Kami looked at him with concern.
You must be very confused with the transition, my friend. Some of them come from your draconic nature, yes, but your wish-granting abilities, as well as your true form, they are still sealed within the Dragon Balls.
Shenron nodded slowly, beginning to understand.
Yes, I remember now. We agreed on that, so I can defend the Dragon Balls better and learn more about the world, so the likes of King Piccolo would never endanger you again. You can at least defend yourself.
Kami nodded.
That is so cool! I always wanted to check out how strong you really were, Shenron.
I am not sure. I still need to get used to this form.
Kami nodded slowly again.
Do not rush things, my friend. It will all come to you in time.
And so, Goku and the humanoid Shenron began their lives on the lookout. Now technically, the dragon should be all-knowing, wise, patient. But this version began to understand that this knowledge was nothing without practical attribution. He knew that mortals had to eat, but he had to learn that for himself. Hygiene and other bodily functions seemed alien to him. He'd never had to have a shower before. Luckily, he didn't have to learn how to walk, he already knew that. He exercised his body slowly, watching from afar how Kami and Mr. Popo were training Goku. Sure, he wasn't the all-knowing dragon anymore, but he wasn't dumb. One day, he decided to try it out for himself, against the new student of Kami, what he had seen. It was his first proper sparring session, although the difference between him and the boy was enormous. This was very humbling for the dragon. He just had to look down at people and people would flee in terror. The monkey boy was just so much more powerful. He was a skilled warrior. Shenron could manifest fire and some basic ki projectiles, but was in no way able to match the kid. This loss made him feel very bitter, but not towards Goku, no. Rather, more toward himself, his own ineptitude. Luckily, this feeling quickly metamorphosed into a new focus, becoming a better guardian for the Dragon Balls, and learning with Goku seemed like the best way to achieve it. He was pretty good. What also became a little overwhelming was the passage of time and his body having to rest and requiring food. He had to keep reminding himself about it. 8 hours of sleep, 3 meals. So much time in mortal life has been taken to simply fuel the form. True, he had the advantage of not aging. He was still immortal, but this was scary. Being taken away from a cozy eternity and then placed in a time that ran like crazy. It was quite overwhelming. Everything was moving much faster. And on top of that, in different directions. Nevertheless though, Goku in that time became a good friend. Maybe not someone to have deep conversations with, he wasn't that sort of person. He had Lord Kami for that, but he was still a supportive being. And over the months, he began to be more surprised when the boy started to grow. It wasn't like regular humans, something was different about it. They didn't usually just shoot up like a stick of bamboo. He could understand, but he liked this new aspect of life, how things grew and aged, discovering stuff. It was as if all the knowledge was within his reach, but the books containing it were closed off to his mind. He only had to ask though. He could learn, but for now, he decided against it. He knew that to live closer to mortals, he had to think like one. Not many people liked a smart-ass, even if it meant a lot of uncertainty and a bit of fear along the way, and he slowly comprehended what his new purpose would be. To be there with Goku for the tournament, when he should face Piccolo's reincarnation. In the worst case scenario, he would be the one to fight the evildoer. And honestly, they still had some stuff to work through. A certain grudge, you could say. It was absolutely terrifying, but for some reason, the anticipation felt good. For the first time in his eternal existence, Shenron was excited about what the future would bring. Years have passed, shadows of doubt growing alongside Shenron's human-like form. While Goku blossomed into an even more formidable fighter, Shenron grappled with his new limitations. His dragon essence, once boundless, now felt caged within mortal flesh, stirring a restless yearning for his lost omnipotence. That and the chronophobia, which was hitting him now really hard. How did Kami deal with this for so long? This gave him some newfound appreciation for his master. Now, before the two of them could depart for the tournament though, the elder took his dragon friend to the side for a simple eye-to-eye conversation, a tete-a-tete.
My friend, your eyes are now mine in the arena. Remember, Goku's might is unquestionable, But if he falters against Piccolo, the burden then falls onto you. And beware, there are shadows within shadows in this battle. Not all threats are as visible as Piccolo. Shenron raised his eyebrows at that very illuminating statement.
But wouldn't that mean that you would also...
Kami gave his friend a sad smile.
Yes, and more. In this form, you are not just continuing your existence. You are the last bastion against a darkness that threatens to engulf this world should I fall. Your survival carries the weight of untold futures.
That was an unexpected and rather gruesome request, thought the dragon human. Something that Shenron did not fully expect. But he had no doubts about trusting his master. It had never been a thing for him before, so why should it be now? And come to think of it, doubts are a bit of an alien experience for him anyway. He dealt in absolutes.
But can't we just imprison him? Or we can use the evil containment wave, like you taught me.
Yes, I know, it's a preferable option. But just in case it fails, just in case you have to act, you have to do it. This is the final option. You have to be ready.
I understand, Master.
He had to think about this in greater detail than he'd expected. Goku noticed his friend looking upset at something and tried to approach him about the subject.
Hey Shenron, why have a long face there? Well, it's not as long as before, but is everything alright? Well, we're gonna be fighting in the tournament in just a few days. Surely you gotta be excited, right?
It's complicated, Goku. See, if we encounter your friends, let's keep my identity under wraps. It's not just about being weird. There's a storm brewing within me. A clash between what I was and what I become. I fear my dragon nature might surface at the wrong moment and make things rather awkward for you and your friends.
He was only sort of lying, Shenron. He knew that this situation would come up, and he'd rather not have the young man's friends ask him for future favors or getting too close just to be a bit of a suck-up. It wasn't the main thing clouding his mind, though, but it was enough to get Goku's attention and to get him on board.
Alright, so you want us to be all mysterious, right?
Yes, I just don't want them to know right now. If they realize that I am the eternal dragon, they might try to sway me to grant their wishes later. I know that you're a good bunch in the end, but as you know, even good people can be selfish from time to time. It's seemingly human nature.
Goku scratched his head.
Oh yeah, you got a point there, Shenron. Bulma will probably ask you for some strawberries like she originally wanted to, but I think she's got a boyfriend now, so shouldn't be all that bad. But Oolong? Yeah, maybe that's a good idea you don't say anything, Bal.
Thank you, my friend. I knew you would understand.
As they were then both preparing for their departure for the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, Shenron gave his master a very long look. This could be the last time that they see each other, if things went south, but Piccolo had to be stopped. If the Martha didn't work, he could be the one having to end his life. He didn't like this duty one bit, but who else but the Eternal Dragon could be the right candidate to make that decision? He bid farewell to Mr. Popo and followed after Goku, who was already on his way. The weight of the mission was a heavy toll for the dragon on their way to the tournament, and he didn't want his young friend to carry the burden as well. They traveled for what felt like many days. It took them a long time to get to the tournament grounds, and it didn't help that on this particular day, the weather was pretty foul as well. It set the mood for everybody. It greatly mirrored Shenron's own feelings. While during the journey he was able not to think about the grim tasks that lay before them, the closer they approached Papaya Island, the more nervous he got. Oh, these feelings were awful. Why did he become human, he would sometimes think. But finally, it came to the moment of the first meeting. He realized very quickly that Goku's friends, up close, were not able to recognize him at all, both due to his growth spurt and the turban.
Goku, your headwear appears to have made them confused,
he politely suggested. He could see how their faces brightened at the sight of the characteristic hairstyle, and everything fell into place. He could see the two young women, Bulma and Launch, Master Roshi, as well as the pig thing with the really pervy thoughts. Oh, and his cat friend. In that moment, things changed. They suddenly became people for him, instead of just beings that asked him for wishes. It all made sense. Soon enough, they were then joined up with 4 other people he recognized: Krillin, Yamcha, Chaozu, and Tenshin Han. And after all of those happy introductions were done, Yamcha posed a question.
Hey Goku, who's your new friend, by the way? You look like a pretty tough old-timer.
Old-timer? I am a perfect average age for a human my age.
Shenron stumbled into a response.
Oh yeah, how rude of us. What's your name, kiddo?
Roshi laughed.
It's Shen. The dragon started before it was too late. Tien looked at him carefully.
Are you related to the Crane Hermit of Mercenary Tao?
Shenlang.
Shenron felt a weird, warm feeling on his face. He couldn't see, but he had turned red. This was new.
Shenlang? How many yens in there, buddy? Asked Krillin as if he wanted to make a mental note.
Just 1. They all looked at him rather suspiciously. This guy was weird. But then again, Goku was weird. So they all burst into merry laughter. Phew.
Well, a friend of Goku is a friend of ours.
Krillin patted the dragon man on the back.
Thanks, Krillin.
You already know my name?
Yeah, I heard Goku saying it on our travels. Yes.
Well, are you competing then?
Shenron was feeling so awkward right now. Even Goku could feel it. And though usually oblivious to social cues, Goku did come to his rescue.
Oh yeah, Lang is like crazy strong. We trained for ages, right Lang?
Oh yeah, we did. A lot of fighting stuff.
As they were walking toward the tournament registration booth, Shenron could hear them talking to each other, just catching up with old times. They had no way of knowing that he had the ability to recognize even a whisper. His draconic powers included very good hearing.
What's the deal with the horns? Should I ask him about that?
Krillin, that would be really rude.
Bulma sniped in.
It's like you're asking someone about your nose thing.
What nose?
Krillin scratched the space in between his eyes where a nose should be. In any other circumstance, Shenron might even find their prattling a little bit amusing. But nevertheless, it felt annoying. With the mission awaiting him, he was very gloomy and grim throughout the entire meeting. It was like he just couldn't enjoy himself. This was the first time he was interacting with humans like this. The registration went by rather quickly, and the dragon hoped that they could get over this whole tournament thing and just be on their way, or find a distraction. His first fight was supposed to be against Yamcha, but before that, he could watch Tenshin Han match up against his former idol, Mercenary Tao, who was now adorned with some really mechanical weirdness, he thought. Luckily, the three-eyed warrior was successful and beat down the assassin rather easily. The next fight that came their way was Goku squaring up against an unnamed girl who was clearly into him. Shenron felt that there was some kind of connection between the two, but he couldn't quite place what it was exactly. But there was something. The fight itself wasn't really long or spectacular, and it seemed that the individual's name was a bit of a gambit, and it turned out to be Chi-Chi. Silly Goku promised her that they would get married when they were young, not fully grasping the concept of marriage. The next fight was with Krillin and Ma Jr., or Piccolo Jr. The dragon watched in horror at this monstrosity. He was slightly different from his father, but seemed to be an even more formidable opponent. Shenron wasn't sure how to feel, scared, relieved, but he was impressed by Krillin's valiant efforts nonetheless. Maybe he too should have trained with them at Kami's place. He did not expect such a display from the little monk. Finally, it came to it. Shenron's first proper fight. Yamcha bowed his head politely.
Well, Shenlong, if you trained with Goku, then you must be pretty tough.
Looking forward to see how powerful you really are. Shenron just nodded without a word. He was really bad at that whole small talk thing, as Krillin saw earlier. Yamcha decided to begin his foray into this fight with, of course, his signature Wolfang Fist, which Lang countered with his Dragon Claw, just taking the hand. This really surprised the bandit, as no one had ever stopped one of his most powerful attacks with such ease. He tried to free himself from the hand of Shenron, the grasp really tight, and then trying to do some kind of rolling kick to get out of it, but his opponent just moved slightly, avoiding the kick. Yamcha was starting to panic and decided to charge, taking his opponent with him. The dragon then decided to let him propel him just a little bit, just go with the flow. He could read what the warrior was trying to do. He was trying to get a ring out, since it was becoming clear he couldn't beat him by pure strength. But suddenly, when they were on the edge of the arena, he stopped, as if he were made of stone, surprising the young man and almost tripping him over. Freed from Lang's grasp, Yamcha thought it would be a good idea to go for his good old last resort, especially with the opponent being so close to the edge. And he launched a powerful spirit ball, an extra large spirit ball, toward him. But to his utmost surprise, Lang managed to catch it and infuse it with his own fiery power and throw it back. The explosion was so powerful that it wrung out the bandit without much of an issue. His first fight was won. After it was over, Shenron decided to help Yamcha up.
Well, Mr. Lang,
You're really strong.
only as strong as I need to be. Not bad, young man. Not bad.
He even smiled a little bit. He was feeling good. And with that, Shenron qualified for the semi-finals, where he will be fighting against Ma Jr. Well, that was an almost fortuitous matchup, wasn't it? But first, he could spectate Goku's fight with Ten Shinhan. He knew his friend's fighting style inside and out, but seeing him go against an equally seasoned warrior was quite the treat. It was especially spectacular when the Triclops went for his multiform technique, and Goku managed to use his own solar flare against him. Well, they have 2 shots of Piccolo then. Good. That made Shenron feel a little bit calmer. It was really needed at that time. So when Shenlang and Ma Jr. stood against one another in the arena, they gave each other a very long gaze.
But who are you supposed to be?
The Demon King's son narrowed his eyes.
You look familiar. I have a bone to pick with your father, dearest. But you will have to do. I'll give you a fight you'll never forget. If that's your wish, it shall be granted.
Shenron smiled. As the two of them charged at one another, the fight felt very fierce, to the point where Piccolo had to remove his weighted clothing, revealing his true nature and terrifying the audience. Shenron, on the other hand, covered his opponent in claw marks and fire, but none of that seemed to be as effective as he hoped for. That battle with Yamcha felt like a distant memory.
I am with you, said a familiar voice, looking through your eyes. Wait for him to get distracted. Attempt to capture him.
He heard Kami's voice clear in his head.
So, you're one of his lackeys, aren't you?
Piccolo's eyes widened, figuring out the situation. He could hear them. There was no time to waste then. As Shenron placed a bottle on the ground, he used all of his might to launch the Mafuba at Junior. Still, it seemed that he had underestimated his opponent again, as he simply reversed the force back at him, putting the dragon in a nifty small bottle. Now everything was in Goku's hands. Shenron was embarrassed and frustrated.
Calm, my friend. You did everything you could.
This did not convince the dragon, but now he could only be a witness, a hostage, in the exchange between Goku and Junior. Their fight began right away, and for the hundreds of years since he came into existence, Shenron hadn't seen anything like it. While Piccolo attempted to destroy the arena, Goku was able to counter him almost every single time. The few people remaining in the stands, those who weren't terrified by the revealing of the Demon King's son's identity before, were now running away. This stopped being just a tournament scuffle. This was a fight to the death. Suddenly, Piccolo grew to a gigantic size, seemingly gaining the upper hand for quite some time. Shenron slowly started to lose hope. This was becoming unassailable, the giant putting the bottle in his mouth. But Goku was able to retrieve it with some clever maneuvering. This prompted the demon to return to his regular size. Clearly, doing that caused him a lot of pain. Then he broke the bottle. Shenron attempted to join in the fray but was stopped by Goku.
No! Let me face him alone!
Are you sure?
The dragon was speechless.
Yes, I am.
Suddenly, an apparition of Kami popped up right next to him.
Goku, it's important for you to finish it! Master!
Shenron gasped.
Yeah, I know.
The young warrior nodded. Goku was doing incredible things. He was turning Piccolo's bullets back onto him, prompting him to rip and regrow one of his limbs. The monkey boy, or rather monkey lad, was dancing with the opponent. But still, Piccolo's blasts were even darker and more ferocious than before, to the point of heavily damaging Goku. When he was about to gloat about his victory, the young warrior revealed that he had also mastered the ability of flight, something that was known to both Kami and Shenron, but had otherwise shocked everyone else. Using his own body as a projectile, he rang out the demon from what was remaining of the ring, thus winning. And with that, Yajirobe was tasked with giving Goku a senzu bean, which had brought him back to near perfect health. Meanwhile, Piccolo was laying there on the brink of death, gasping for air. He had done it. They had really done it. Shenron was happy. Now to finish him off.
Hey, Yajirobe, can I get another bean?
Goku smiled.
Sure?
The Ronin was surprised by their request, but okay. With Kami and Shenron screaming almost in unison when he offered that bean to Piccolo.
Goku, we have to stop him once and for all!
Shenron yelled.
Yeah, about that. If he goes away, Kami also goes away. But I don't want that. We wouldn't be better than his father, would we? Besides, he's really strong and I need a powerful rival, you know? I want to fight him again.
Piccolo looked around in a dazed expression, slightly paranoid. Shenron felt something really odd. King Piccolo would use this opportunity to attack Goku, but instead, he flew away, gloating, as it was his weird way of processing his emotions of losing. And Shenron did know a thing or two when it came to processing new alien emotions. He kind of understood Piccolo right now.
Goku, you are absolutely stunning. Your heart is utmost pure. Would you be willing to take my job as guardian? I see it now. You are the only one worthy of the title.
What? After all of that, Master could not simply, but Goku, being his natural self, just showed his tongue and winked in a playful manner.
No thanks, Kami. I'll pass.
He said quickly as he grabbed Chi-Chi, climbing on the flying Nimbus that had just arrived.
Few things can beat this thing.
And as he left with his betrothed, everyone remained slightly dumbfounded by everything that they had just witnessed. Kami chuckled softly, then disappeared. So, was it over? Was that it? Piccolo decided not to destroy them, and Goku just left. And his master was seriously considering asking the boy to replace him? Soon, Shenron found himself standing there, all alone, aimless. He was probably expected to return to the lookout or find a living situation of his own. But he knew that the mission was not over. He didn't trust Piccolo one bit. There was still something odd about this one. He intended to learn what it was, one way or the other. No, the mission wasn't over. It just evolved. Someone had to have an eye on the Demon King's son, and this someone might as well be Mr. Shenlong. In the last part, Shenron, the eternal dragon, now finds himself in a human-like form. Shenron, who used to be omnipotent, now grapples with his newfound limitations and chronophobia, a fear of time passing. Kami, his master, entrusts him with a grave responsibility to watch over Goku and be ready to act against Piccolo if necessary. Kami warns Shenron that he's the last defense against darkness should Kami fall, placing a heavy burden on Shenron's shoulders. Shenron struggles with this duty, and his shifting identity, now being part human, no longer only eternal dragon. And as Shenron and Goku prepare for the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, Shenron conceals his true identity from Goku's friends, fearing that they might exploit his dragon powers should they know the truth for personal gain. His interactions with the group, including the likes of Bulma, Launch, Master Roshi, Krillin, Yamcha, Chaozu, and Ten Shinhan, are awkward but humorous, as they fail to recognize him. Shenron adopts the name to them as Shenlang, just to blend in, and it works. Now, during the tournament, Shenron faces eternal conflict and external challenges, reflecting on his dragon nature and the daunting task ahead of him. The tournament unfolds with intense battles showcasing Shenron's power and the strengths of Goku and other fighters. Shenron, again under the guise of Shenlang, fights valiantly, but ultimately, the responsibility of stopping Piccolo finally rests on Goku's shoulders. In a dramatic turn of events, Goku defeats Piccolo but chooses to spare his life, going against everything Shenron expected, believing Goku in the potential for change and the need of a strong rival. This decision leaves Shenron, Kami, and others stunned. Kami even offers Goku the role of Guardian of Earth for this surprising act, but Goku playfully declines. The part ends with Shenron, now more human than dragon, reflecting on this altered mission, realizing he must keep an eye on Piccolo, symbolizing a new chapter in its existence, which I shall bring to you now. It had been a very surreal experience for Shenron. He was experiencing these newfound emotions and instincts that he had never had to process before. Having gained a sense of purpose after training with Goku and Kami, he then realized that with said purpose came a lot of tension and apprehension. The son of King Piccolo was not what he had expected. Instead of being yet another incarnation of the devil himself, he had proven to have acquired strange mutations along the way. It was something akin to mercy that he was showing, and Goku had vowed to fight him again someday. What kind of scenario and challenge was that? Another emotion that was washing over him in that moment. It wasn't one he particularly enjoyed experiencing, something that he had grown to fear. He had felt it when King Piccolo had blasted him away back when he was a dragon. It was a feeling of anger. Anger at having been eliminated out of sheer cowardice and paranoia. Shenron cursed under his breath. The eternal dragon succumbing to such base drives, but he had to remember, he was not the eternal dragon anymore, or at least not entirely at that present moment. But then again, he had been frequently visiting the home of Goku and Chi-Chi, acting more like a human, who had since the tournament taken up residence on the plains of Mount Paozu after generous donations from the Ox King. The couple had been quite reclusive since tying the knot, but Goku had been more than happy for Shenron to spend time with them. They didn't want to ice him out. After all, he was a special being to them, and he had trained with them closely on the lookout. That, and the 4-star ball was always around, therefore pulling him in. Chi-Chi also welcomed Shenron as their guest, Goku having spilled the beans about his identity to his now wife, because no keeping secrets. Shenron wasn't at all pleased at the slip of the tongue, but Chi-Chi had vowed to keep the dragon's secret safe, in exchange for something. In exchange for Shenron not telling anyone about the fact that they were expecting soon their first child. Shenron had found the pregnancy test that she had bought at the store one day, and he was just casually waving it around in front of her face when Goku was out catching their meal for the evening. This was something she wasn't expecting a dragon to be curious about, but he was.
Tell me, how does it feel to be creating life?
Chi-Chi wasn't sure what to say about that.
I don't know. I never thought about it that way. I'm excited to be starting a family with the man I love.
Shenron found that truly fascinating.
I see. Forgive the unorthodox phrasing of mine. It's hard for someone such as myself to comprehend things on such a singular level. The truth is, I don't understand the little things that make up mortal life. As a dragon who lived in a perpetual state of non-time, said passage of it is something that both intrigues me and frightens me. That is something I hope to glean in this form, some clarity, and a means to no longer be afraid.
He placed a hand on his chest.
I will get there someday, to understand everything, but one thing I do understand in the here and now is that the bond that you and Goku have is truly special. You are perfect for one another.
Chi-Chi blushed and thanked Shenron for the warm words. This, coming from an all-knowing and long-living being, was high praise. Sure enough, Shenron kept his word, telling no one, not even Kami, about the secret that he had kept. However, he did not lose sight of the mission that he had tasked himself originally. On the days that not much was going on around Mount Palzu, Kami would occasionally report to Shenron as to the goings and comings of Piccolo, since they obviously had that connection, which allowed the sage old man to monitor sporadic movements which were enough for the dragon to use to aim to track the demon's spawn. For one particular situation, Shenron committed to following Piccolo for days on end once he got the trail. Throughout all that time, Shenron was expecting the Green Man to be plotting his revenge, taking his anger out on wild animals, seeking to destroy the world government, claim it for himself and his father once more, do what the original Piccolo did. After all, this version was even stronger than the elder. He'd be even more dangerous. Goku was barely able to get out of that battle in one piece, and yet there was none of that going on. For the most part, this Piccolo spent his days and nights just meditating. It looked rather peaceful, in fact. Of course, Piccolo did spend time training physically. He was even working on some kind of technique that meant placing 2 fingers on his forehead and then charging something. But before Shenron could gather more information as to what this technique was going to be, the son of the demon spoke out.
Come on out! I know you're there!
Shenron was flabbergasted. How did he know he was there? No, it was a bluff. Yes, Piccolo's bluffing the sneak. No, he would just stay put and hope that whoosh! A ball of energy shot past his mane of hair and took out a nearby tree.
I will not ask again. Come out!
No point hiding now. Shenron gulped and stepped out into the clearing where Piccolo, who had been meditating once more, stood before him. Not about to attack, though.
What do you want? Clearly something important since you've been stalking me for days. How do you know that?
Said Shenron, surprised, but then it clicked.
I should have been more careful.
Piccolo laughed.
Pathetic. For something so magical, you seriously forgot about the sensitive hearing that I and Kami possess? You did not think this through, did you? Desperation got the better of you. Do you believe everything that old man tells you?
Shenron gritted his teeth, not wanting to hear any more about Kami. He launched a fierce punch in defense of his master. It connected with Piccolo's face, him taking the strike, with a smirk on that face not going away.
I'm amazed at how unstable you truly are. You're supposed to be the eternal dragon after all.
Shenron reeled back and was shocked.
How do you know that? Come on. Shenlang or Shenlong or whatever name you chose. The human scum may have been fooled, but not me. The son of the great Demon King Piccolo. The one who was able to snuff you into oblivion.
He said that with a very wry laugh, which goaded Shenron into attacking again. Sure enough, his attacks were just being rebuffed by Piccolo, but he wasn't so weak that it meant they didn't hurt. He wasn't being trounced, Shenron. No, he could defend himself, but the desire to badly injure the other half of the Nameless Guardian was carrying him through. Piccolo then struck him back several feet, calling a halt to proceedings.
Enough!
He gazed at Shenron for a second.
What's your end goal, Dragon? You do realize that we're in a sort of stalemate at the moment. You can't kill me without killing your grandpa.
Shenron clenched his fist.
And you can't kill me because you need the Dragon Balls to take over the world.
Piccolo raised his brow.
I don't need the Dragon Balls to do that, but I may want them somewhere down the line. So, I guess you're half right. So now what?
The two looked at each other for what seemed like hours. In the end, it was the dragon that broke the silence.
Do not kill any more innocent people.
Piccolo looked rather quizzically at that.
Too much to ask, I see,
said the dragon with venom in his voice.
No, inaccurate. I have not killed anyone, nor have I injured anyone. All I've been striving for in this existence is to kill one man, Son Goku, to avenge my father. I hate to disappoint you, but I don't plan on killing anyone at this time. My goal is simple. And then what? What after killing Goku?
Piccolo chuckled.
Some faith you have in a friend. Goku dying should be out of the question for you. You've got a lot to learn about how mortals work, my friend. I am not your friend! Now promise me, do not kill anyone!
Piccolo grunted, rolling his eyes.
If it'll get you to leave me alone, fine. Have it your way. But when it comes to Goku and I, you stay out of it. Kami was wrong to make you his personal bodyguard. He couldn't defend the world himself, so he trusted that protection to you, roping you into it. Now get out of here, or else I change my mind about wanting the Dragon Balls.
He charged up a ball of energy as a threat to make the dragon go away, but the Dragon Man didn't need the warning. He stormed off in a rage, promising himself to better himself. That night, he requested to train harder with Goku than ever before.
Why the need, buddy? Piccolo ain't gonna do nothing bad. He hasn't so far.
Shenron wanted to tell him about what Piccolo had said to him, including the dig and suspicions around Kami, but he couldn't bring himself to do it.
I just want to do what Kami had charged me to do. Protect you and your family, as well as the planet.
Goku nodded.
Appreciate it, bud. Okay, we'll start in the morning.
However, Shenron's assistance was required soon after. Not concerning the Dragon Balls, but more in terms of practicality and a pair of hands. Chi-Chi was giving birth to Gohan, and Shenron was very much needed to aid in the arrival of their firstborn. Shenron wanted a crash course in what creating life was all about and how mortals worked. Well, no time like the present. After a very haggard time for all concerned, including many dropped towels and almost a dropped baby, Gohan was born. Goku and Chi-Chi cradled their newborn son, Shenron looking on and using the human invention known as a camera to capture the moment. He quite liked this thing.
I must say, Chi-Chi, I have learned much today about life, in great detail.
Chi-Chi laughed, but in a tired fashion, still appreciating the joke.
What's so funny?
The dragon said, but then Goku motioned over to Shenron.
Hey, come join us in the picture, will ya?
Shenron looked surprised.
Me? Why, Goku?
'Cause you're family. That and you're the Eternal Dragon. You've been a real help around here, so come on, hop in.
He motioned between him and Chi-Chi. She nodded in agreement.
Yes, you're part of our family now.
Thank you for being here. Shenron was overwhelmed with these fangled emotions again. He set the camera up and set it to capture by itself. He nestled himself in between Chi-Chi, Goku, and now Gohan, behind the couch because he was quite tall, and smiled. Smiling. It still felt odd to him, but it was nice. This whole thing felt nice. The camera went snap, and the picture was taken. It still hangs on their fridge to this day. Shenron was beginning to understand what it meant to be human. Not through sensation, but through emotion. Would this stand him in good stead for the future? It's kind of hard to say, but he was okay with this for now. A few years later, Shenron and Goku were busy collecting wood for the fireplace in their annual collection dozens of miles away, right where the best kindling was to be found. It had been a lovely little tradition that they had acquired. Sure, they could get their lickety-split, but it was nice. But what happened next was not so nice. A twitch of negative energy they felt cracked through their minds, and they sensed something bad had happened back at the homestead. Without a moment to lose, they dropped the firewood that they had acquired, rushing back home as fast as they could, to find Chi-Chi and Ox King out cold, and Gohan nowhere to be seen. What had happened? Shenron immediately jumped to conclusions.
Piccolo! A scoundrel!
Chi-Chi shook her head.
No, not him. Others. Hurry. Go get our baby boy back.
She fell unconscious once more. Goku and Shenron looked to each other and nodded.
Let's go,
said Goku with authority, and with that, the pair flew to the last place that they could sense Gohan's energy. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Hey folks, MasakoX here. This holiday miracle tells of a captivating story centered around Shenron, traditionally known as the Eternal Dragon in the Dragon Ball universe, who finds himself in a human-like form for this holiday miracle. Struggling with his new limitations and a fear of time passing, Shenron grapples with his identity and the heavy responsibility laid upon him by Kami, his master, the Guardian of Earth. Tasked with watching over Goku and acting against Piccolo if necessary, Shenron, under the alias Shenlong, trains with Goku and interacts awkwardly yet humorously with Goku's friends, who are completely unaware of his true identity. Despite his transformation, Shenron remains connected to his past responsibilities and powers, as we saw starting to brew in the last part. He frequently visits Goku and Chi-Chi's home, learning about human emotions and the subtleties of life, including Chi-Chi's pregnancy, which he promises to keep secret. Meanwhile, he keeps a watchful eye on Piccolo, expecting him to seek revenge right from the get-go and destroy the world or take over it. However, upon confronting Piccolo, Shenron is surprised to find him relatively peaceful, meditating, and casually training. Their encounter reveals Piccolo's awareness of Shenron's true identity and his intention to focus on defeating Goku, not causing widespread harm. This revelation prompts Shenron to commit to better understanding humanity. His bond with Goku and Chi-Chi deepens, especially during the birth of their child. Years later, a new crisis emerges when Gohan goes missing, and Shenron and Goku sense negative energy, suspecting Piccolo's involvement. However, they learn it's not Piccolo behind this, but others who are responsible. He will realize what happens when the Dragon Balls are used against his will. It had become clear that the attackers had left with the Dragon Ball, since Shenron had noticed that the 4-star Dragon Ball atop Gohan's discarded hat was gone, leaving just that and a very, very somber household. The Dragon Man hadn't thought about what would happen had somebody tried to wish upon these orbs whilst in this form. It hadn't happened since he had become human. Would it work? What could happen? Could he prevent it? Could he refuse the wish? These were questions that were whirling around his head on the journey to follow the key from Gohan, which was getting progressively harder to pinpoint. But they kept trying. However, the Dragon Man was starting to, as they were getting closer to the den of the beast, wondering and worrying who this could be. It was a sensation he was starting to feel that felt very familiar, thanks to his connection with Kami. He couldn't quite place it, but he had an inkling that this person was someone that the Guardian had come across before, or, at the very least, a descendant of someone he had met before. Sure enough, it was Garlic Jr., whoever he is, was gazing upon the impish child that was Gohan, who was crying non-stop, demanding that they give back the Dragon Ball that they stole from him, or else his father would come and his big burly dragon friend behind him.
Dragon friend? Pish! Dragons don't exist in the mortal realm. You must mean a dinosaur friend.
Gohan shifted nervously.
Icarus isn't big or burly. I'm telling you, he'll be sorry.
And who might your father be?
Son Goku!
Shouted the kid tempestuously. Immediately, the Zenny dropped, and Garlic Jr. looked to his minions and grimaced.
Are you telling me that you brought the child of Son Goku to my castle? Seriously? Did you not think to just take the ball and leave the kid behind?
The minions nervously looked at one another. Nikki spoke.
We thought it might be a sign of dominance once you crush that fool with the powers that you will gather from said orbs. Yes, it was our plan.
The others nodded in agreement, desperate to get some good grace, but Garlic listened.
I've trained you well to pander toward me. You are lucky this was the last orb we were after, and he has no time to counter. Now, hurry up and gather the other ones from the meatery.
The mooks did so, and soon enough, the wish was ready to be called for.
Rise, eternal dragon!
Shouted Garlic, excited to have immortality bestowed upon him that very moment. About that, miles away, Shenron felt a burning hot sensation in his chest. It wasn't pleasant. He let out a roar of pain and collapsed to the ground, them having approached a dark wood. Goku whipped around and looked shocked at his friend's agony.
Huh? What's wrong, buddy? What's going on?
I don't know. It's like my insides are burning.
Shenron continued to grimace and writhe. Goku tried to pull out a senzu bean he had kept for emergencies. Maybe that would help. Here, eat this. Shenron was about to take it when he remembered what the sensation was. It was changing from a simple pain to a pulling action. Oh, he remembered what that was. This was the same experience that he would have when somebody was trying to summon him, about to wish for something on the Dragon Balls. Yeah, he was being summoned. Yep, definitely. It didn't hurt when he was a non-corporeal dragon sleeping in non-time, but here, in the physical realm, in this human form, it was unbearable. What was Kami thinking? Would he experience this every time somebody would ask for a wish? He had been lucky the orbs were not on people's radar up until now, especially Bulma, who, as he could tell, had selfish desires and brought them to light of his friends in the first place.
Goku, take my hand. I can't hold on.
Goku did so.
What, Shenron? What's happening?
Somebody is using the Dragon Balls. They're summoning me. I think I know where Gohan might scrap.
Without another word, Shenron couldn't hold on any longer to his human form, and the pair, when Goku grabbed his hand, or whatever it became, was suddenly whisked away at lightning speed, Shenron's body metamorphosing into the dragon-shaped being that Goku had known for so long. Goku was being pulled at a pace he had never experienced before, and then he was about to be sick from how fast he was traveling. Oh, you better get used to that, mate. Seconds later, he let go and span ferociously into the side of what was a castle, a streak of yellow lightning soaring overhead into the center of the abode. Goku painfully extricated himself from the wall and gathered his bearings. So, this was where Gohan was. Yes, he could feel his son's ki clearer than he had in hours, but there was no time to lose. He had to stop the wish from being granted, to save his friend. Speaking of, Garlic Jr. finally saw the ball of light above, transfiguring itself into the shape of the eternal dragon. But for a split second, it kind of looked like a man? That was weird. He didn't recall any stories about the legendary man before, But no matter. Shenron was here, and he was about to grant him his wish.
You have summoned the eternal dragon. State your wish.
Had this dragon gotten out the wrong side of the bed this morning? It sounded like he was grudgingly resisting his directive, or having an aneurysm, or something. Eternal dragon, I wish you to grant me immortality, so that my plan to rule this world shall be complete, and my tyranny shall be unbound by the laws of time. Shenron was silent. No words. No glowing eyes. Nothing. Dragon, did you hear me? I wish for immortality. Please? Did I say it correctly?
I can not grant this wish.
What? Why can't you grant my wish? I have done my research, Dragon, and there is nothing in the legend saying that immortality is forbidden. I know what I'm talking about.
I do not wish to.
Garlic was getting weirded out by this thing. This was definitely not supposed to happen. A corrupt Shenron. He clenched his teeth and roared as loud as his lungs could bellow.
Dragon! I order you to make me live forever! I shall not be bossed around by a thing that is meant to bow down before its summoner! Now, make me immortal!
Shenron contorted, trying to resist its base instinct, but he couldn't hold on anymore. Flatly, he spoke as his eyes glowed.
Your wish has been granted.
Instantly, Garlic could feel his body changing, renewing itself constantly. He had done it. He was now immortal. The dragon said nothing as its body glowed white and the dragon balls scattered across the world, not to be summoned on again for a whole year. But what would happen to Shenron's body? Would he be dormant for a whole year? Questions for later. But seconds later, Goku whipped around the corner of the quadrant and saw his son, asleep on the throne, having cried himself to sleep.
Shenron!
Garlic laughed.
You are too late, Son Goku. You have failed to prevent the dragon from making me, Garlic Jr., immortal. Now, bow down before me, and I may give you back your son, so that you may both obey my every command.
Before Goku could ask who he was, having no clue, a familiar figure appeared before him. It wasn't Shenron, but it was Kami.
Goku, I came as quickly as I could. This is not a person you should be trifling with alone.
Garlic put on a sour expression.
You.
Kami then explained to Goku who this little imp was. This was the son of the monster that Kami had beaten to the post of becoming the Guardian of Earth many moons ago. In response, Garlic Sr. wrought fear and devastation upon the planet. Only Kami could purge it, as well as using the powers for good against him.
I am sorry that I was not able to prevent the wish being summoned. Where is his human form?
He asked Goku. Goku shrugged.
Well, I don't know. He glowed, dragged me here, and then nothing. Can't sense him anywhere near here.
Kami concentrated to sense where he wound up, but before he could do that, Garlic had grown bored of this distraction and began to attack the pair in his bulked up form. Now, speaking of Shenron, he had wound up back in his human form again, still conscious, but dazed and confused, nowhere near Goku and the castle, where he had granted their enemy immortality. He had effectively betrayed his friends. He couldn't stop the wish from being made. He then curled up into a ball and wept. What kind of freak was he? All that Kami had done was made him aware of the horrific power that he held and how it could be abused by mortal beings. By making him a mortal-like being, he was now also aware of the feelings of guilt and regret that came with this condition. He couldn't stop the tears, as they then changed from tears of sorrow to tears of anger. What was the point of all of this? The point of everything? Kami, he hadn't done this out of mercy. He had been selfish. He wanted company. He wanted to control the Dragon Balls more directly. He wanted to control his own creation in a softer, fleshier form. He punched a nearby tree and roared with anger.
What did that tree do to you?
Said a familiar voice. Shenron whipped around and saw the last person he wanted to see right now. Piccolo.
Now's not the time for banter such as this, Piccolo. I have done a terrible thing. What? Doing your job? I sensed it happen. Kami and I's bond, remember?
He tapped his head.
I knew this would happen. Not nice, huh? Being subservient to someone? Powerless to resist? Starting to regret being human?
Shenron wanted to lamp this scum in the face so badly right now, but he wasn't wrong. But he also didn't want to admit that.
I am so confused right now. What is my purpose?
Piccolo smirked.
To not leave me alone. Make sure I'm a good boy.
Shenron looked to him confusedly.
What? Listen, we may not be friends, but right now we have a common goal. To stop whatever that is trying to usurp my righteous claim to the planet. You want to make up for your failure? Well, you can start by fighting back with everything you've got.
Piccolo offered him a hand up, which Shenron surprisingly took. He had plenty of questions for Kami later, but right now, Piccolo was talking sense. He couldn't stay and wallow in self-pity here. He had to use his current form and fight for Earth. At once, both of them flew off at breakneck speed toward the castle to aid Kami and Goku in the quest in stopping Garlic Jr. The story of the Dead Zone then proceeds as it does in the original, because the beings here are stronger than the original, but is still not powerful enough to stop Garlic because, well, he's immortal. He can just keep on coming constantly. Stop it. Sure enough, Garlic opens up the Dead Zone and attempts to suck everything. Stop it! Starting with these fools that oppose his right to rule. However, he still couldn't factor in the presence of Gohan. Nobody expected the child to be so ensconced with rage like that. That power boost was astonishing and was enough to push Garlic Jr. off his feet and send him hurling into the Dead Zone, closing it afterward, negating it, thusly preventing the planet from being subject to his ire. They had done it. Shenron had fought valiantly alongside Goku, Kami, and even Piccolo, and, Gohan seemingly. But that still didn't make up for the fact that his wish-granting powers had put the world in jeopardy. He couldn't resist the wish. He tried, his original purpose clashing with his current iteration. Shenron wanted to thank Piccolo for his pep talk, but he had disappeared as soon as the sky had reverted back to its normal blue, and all seemed well. Shame. He had been so untrusting of that creature, but he had been the one to show him the light, despite his dark origins. Some clarity when he had been so clouded in judgment. Piccolo had answers, whereas Kami had nothing but questions surrounding him. When Goku and Gohan were ready to head for home, Shenron bade them farewell, saying that he and Kami had important matters to attend to up on the lookout, which Goku paid no mind because, he knew who they were. Keen to get his son home too and reassure Chi-Chi. When they were gone, Shenron turned to Kami with an ashened face.
We need to talk.
Kami knew what the subject was about.
Shenron, I understand that you may feel not here.
He pointed to the lookout.
There.
Without another word, he flew toward it, with Kami following behind him at a distance, unsure and nervous as to what to expect from this seething dragon. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Anger is a weird emotion. In the past, Shenron did feel a slight irritation towards some of the mortals who summoned him and demanded silly or poorly thought out wishes. It happened all the time. But still, in the past, he didn't really care about those selfish desires. He always felt that they would get their comeuppance one day, one way or another. And he had the distance of being an immortal being. Why would he care? But now, this was personal. He felt used, as if he were merely an extension of a tool. There was fire and violence inside of him. and he hated that.
What do you wish to talk about?
Kami looked at him patiently, anticipating the worst and maybe getting it. Just at that moment, Shenron realized that he was looking in the distance with his fists clenched.
I could not have done anything about that wish.
He gritted his teeth.
I made our enemy immortal.
But it doesn't matter, my friend. In the end, we were able to stop him. There's been no harm done. You can relax.
No harm done. No harm done? You said that I will be able to choose my own path, and yet I can't even step up to the likes of Garlic Jr., stop him from abusing my power.
You had some similar experiences in the past. Greedy kings, powermongers, King Piccolo.
Kami was looking at him, accentuating and enhancing the second part of that name.
Why is this the thing that has bothered you all of a sudden?
Because now what I do could hurt my friends. You wanted me to walk among them, yes? Yet I can't protect them. If someone collects the Dragon Balls and uses them against them, this is personal now, Kami.
Answering to the Dragon Balls is your duty. You must remember that. And remember also that I did tell you that I could consider sealing them. But maybe you can also help them if...
There is no can, Kami! There's only must.
Shenron was seething. We all have our duties. They are not always easy.
The old man raised his voice slightly.
Then I will make sure that no malicious creature will ever find the Dragon Balls again. If not, then I will not be held responsible for my actions.
He hissed. Kami was shaking his head. He was losing the argument. But then he realized where all of this anger was coming from. You spoke to Piccolo, didn't you?
Don't let him get into your head. His goals are known, they are clear. He is interested only in dominance and disruption.
And what about your goals?
Shenron glared at Kami. Kami was taken aback.
Pardon me? Your goals, Kami. You may not be Piccolo in terms of malevolence, but you are not that different from him. You both are schemers. What are your end goals?
Because it seems to me that I'm some kind of pawn in a game of some sort that I have no idea what the outcome will be. I do not see the end goal. You must know that as Guardian...
Kami began to talk, but Shenron interrupted, roaring in frustration.
No! Not that again! If you are willing to tell me, fine! I am going to secure the Dragon Balls myself. I am tired of being patronized!
He took to the skies immediately and left.
Come back! Kami roared. Come back this instant! You don't understand!
But he was gone. Mr. Popo, meanwhile, was watching the bickering from a distance with a sad expression. Shenron simply wasn't listening. He wanted to make sure that no more dangerous people could ever get near the Dragon Balls. Not while he was around and could be responsible. It took him a year and a half or so to find suitable places to hide them, and they were far better than where the orbs actually landed. Finding them was easy because, if you think about it, he's kind of a Dragon Radar himself. It was not also hard for him to lose a sense of time, as only after a few weeks had he begun to realize how long he had been doing this task. To him, it felt like seconds, but a month had passed. Kami tried to reach out to him on multiple occasions to try and see sense, but Shenron managed to learn how to push Kami's voice further and further into the recesses of his mind. He just didn't want to know. He felt bad, though, for disappearing and not telling anything about this to anyone, not even his closest friends, but his resolve was stronger than ever. It was almost like he had a self-imposed exile, as part of him was beginning to wonder, was he punishing himself for Garlic's wish? It was hard to say that the emotions of mortals were weird and sometimes quite alien, but he was human now. Technically not an alien. But speaking of aliens, there was something or someone approaching Earth and then soon appeared upon it. It was a power that Shenron hadn't yet experienced, in his entire life. Moreover, he felt that this presence was heading toward Piccolo. That was bad. He was mad at Kami, yes, but he didn't want anything bad to happen to the old curmudgeon. They were, after all, a very weird and dysfunctional family. He witnessed something peculiar. Piccolo was duking it out against a strange man. Said man was wearing odd armor, had long black hair, and had a tail that really looked like Goku's. Well, fighting, yes, it was a big word because the newcomer was unfazed by Piccolo's assaults. He didn't even notice Shenron approaching as he quickly turned his head around. Something was happening to that weird contraption on his head. It was making this really weird beeping. But then the thing shrugged and quickly left, leaving Piccolo stunned, not even paying that much attention to the dragon who had shown up.
Are you all right?
Shenron approached him.
For the first time, he could see the evil half of Kami truly scared. I couldn't even lay a finger on him. And then he just left. Like I was nothing. Who was he? I don't know. He could become a problem. Did you happen to notice the tail?
Shenron tilted his head.
What about it?
Piccolo looked puzzled, not really in the mood for inane guesswork.
What importance does it have? Right, you weren't around for that. Still, you should remember our father's memories. Goku used to have a tail just like that when he was young. But since then, it has been removed for all of our safety.
Piccolo blinked twice, processing the information. Stunned.
Goku's tail? He could be very agile, but at the same time, become a monster. This man was looking for someone. You think that might be Goku?
The dragon shook his head, not entirely certain about why this thing was here, but then, when he thought about it...
Yes, that's the conclusion I am coming toward. We should warn him. Why would I do that?
Piccolo's eyes narrowed, the original malicious intent toward Goku coming to the fore.
Because none of us can take this man alone, and he is a threat to everyone here. Goku cannot deal with it alone, as you couldn't.
Piccolo glowered.
But maybe we might if we join forces.
Piccolo did not like the sound of that, an alliance, but Shenron had a point. His plans were jeopardized if this stranger was around. How could he take over a planet if there was no planet to take over? And besides, if someone was supposed to kill Goku, it should be him.
All right, lead the way.
Shenron nodded as they took to the skies. They hoped they could be fast enough to make a difference. But sadly, they weren't. The newcomer had already paid a visit to Kame House, where Goku had been, and had taken his son. Of course, everyone was incredibly wary of Piccolo, unsure about his intent, but Shenlong had managed to persuade them about some kind of truce. The weirdest part is that he had learned, though, was that this individual was apparently Goku's brother, Raditz, apparently, and a member of an alien race called the Saiyans. There was a slight ringing in Shenron's head when that name came up. He knew that he could access his knowledge in his dragon form because he was an all-knowing god. It was like looking at a book through a glass case. He could see it, he just couldn't get near it to get to the specifics, but still, the fact is that Gohan had been taken, and they had to act quickly. It was decided that Goku, Piccolo, and Shenlong would go after this Raditz individual. Luckily, he hadn't got far, which had prompted Shenron to believe that this surely was a trap, leading them out into the distance and taking them all out one by one. And after the initial tussle with the two strongest warriors on the planet, maybe then Shenron could try and grab Gohan and get him out of harm's way. But that was proven unsuccessful, because it became clear to him that this opponent was on a whole other level. He moved faster and almost was able to knock him down with a singular attack. As the barrage of ki blasts took out Piccolo's arm, the dragon then tried to get him away and maybe give him some time to regenerate.
You and Goku need to get his attention somehow. I have a plan,
said Piccolo, starting to charge a single-handed beam attack. The technique that Shenron, way back in the day, saw him trying to refine. Goku decided to go for it then with his Kamehameha, while Shenron launched a powerful fire breath maneuver that scorched part of Raditz's magnificent mane and space armor. He would have retaliated in anger, if not for Goku shielding Lang from his attack, but sustaining heavy damage himself. Then the two exchanged more attacks.
Shenron, take Gohan now!
Shouted Goku, sending another Kamehameha to distract Raditz. With that, the dragon charged at the pod and broke it open. Raditz and Goku grabbed by the neck, which caused something weird to happen with Gohan again. Suddenly, the tiny boy launched like a bullet and hit his nefarious uncle with great power right in the solar plexus, shocking everyone around them. But it was familiar, like what happened with Garlic. Could they harness that power someday? But anyway, using this distraction, Goku grabbed the Saiyan with a full Nelson and ordered Piccolo to shoot. Before Shenron could react, a special beam cannon drilled through both of their chests.
No!
Lang yelled, flying towards the falling bodies. As Piccolo approached the scene, Shenron lashed out at him, his old paranoid thoughts about the king's son coming to the fore.
Why would you do that?
He hissed loudly. You can wish him back with the Dragon Balls. And that way, we are sure that this guy is gone. It's your thing, you know.
Their bickering was interrupted by a soft chuckle from Raditz.
You fools! My scouter is a transmitter. There are 2 more in my troop stronger than I. They will follow in my step.
Piccolo had had enough of this smugness and crushed the Saiyan's throat.
We better act fast. You heard him. 2 coming. Even stronger than him.
Anger had evaporated from the Eternal Dragon, but right now, he felt overwhelmed by everything that had happened that day. And Gohan, that poor child, seeing this kind of thing again, he must have been terrified. He had to take him back to his mother right now. But in just a few moments, the crowd came along. Krillin, Bulma, and Roshi arrived at the scene, while Shenron was trying to calm the boy down, him having regained consciousness. And meanwhile, Goku's body just vanished. What's going on? Krillin blinked twice, unsure what was going on. Then, Kami's voice rang through their ears.
Do not worry, my friends. Do not worry about Goku. When he is ready to be resurrected, we shall let you know, and that will be the time to act.
What's that supposed to mean?
I am sending him to a special training camp that can only be possible to access from the other world. Goku is our only hope now.
Shenron grew weary of distrusting Kami now, and he simply confirmed that this message was true. The logic was sound. And then he wanted to depart with the kid, but Piccolo blocked his way.
What are you doing?
Shenron narrowed his eyes.
The kid. Hand him over. Over my dead body. What do you need him for? Isn't it obvious? He needs to train. This is a terrified 4-year-old. What are you going on about? As said 4-year-old has now twice managed to help us out in a sticky situation. He managed to wound that Saiyan. You saw it. He has insane potential, and I'm gonna draw it out of him. You can help if you want. Maybe you can improve yourself. I bet it would probably be easier to explain to his mother if you were there.
The evil half of Kami was really starting to turn the screw, smirking while he said that. He looked at the child he was holding in his arms, a child he watched from the very beginning of his life. And at the same time, the same child had done more damage to Raditz than any of them had done. There was some wisdom in Piccolo's words, but there was also another sort of motive in them. Him and Kami were schemers. But what about Shenron? Well, he was going to be a guardian, in another sense, fine. He could not have won the fight against Piccolo even if he wanted to. No one could stop him from taking Gohan, really. But for him, Shenron, what he could do was make sure that he wouldn't mess with the boy's head and try to corrupt him. He could be that guardian.
All right, we will take care of the boy. Krillin,
said Shenron. Yeah, Mr. Lang?
Can you forward this message to Chi-Chi? Tell her that her child is safe. I promise on my honor.
He tried to be cool while saying that, but he was bricking it on the inside. All right, but I'd rather not, but I trust you, Mr. Lang. I trust the messenger of Kami. Shenlang rolled his eyes. He knew that Piccolo was smirking at that title.
I'd rather you trust me, Krillin, as a man of honor.
And as such, Gohan began his training with 2 masters this time. Although, it was also an exercise for Shenron himself as well. Piccolo was an incredibly harsh teacher, but he was also fair. At the same time, the dragon made sure that he would not be able to push the boy too hard or get him to try and help him to take over the world. Weirdly enough, the 3 of them even started to enjoy their company in some very weird and bizarre way, especially when, during one of the nights, Shenron heard from Kami that Raditz had made it to Hell instead of Limbo, which may mean that Piccolo was indeed growing some kind of conscience. He didn't respond to that theory, but it gave him a lot to think about. A big test, though, came when one of those nights, Gohan looked at a full moon and transformed into a gigantic ape monstrosity, just like his father did. Thankfully, Shenron was able to use his magic to cover the view with illusionary clouds, and then preventing it from going full force, and then afterwards, they removed his tail.
To be fair, we should have done it earlier. I told you they'd do that,
Shenron said. And whilst the whole situation was looking rather grisly, they both chuckled, making sure the boy had new clothes and didn't remember the entire thing.
If we defeat the Saiyans, what's next for you?
Shenron asked Piccolo once in their camp.
Isn't it obvious? I'm gonna continue to try and fulfill my father's wishes. I mean, you already killed Goku, technically.
The dragon crossed his arms.
Well, that doesn't count. It was satisfying, yes, but only for a brief period. Maybe it never will? Don't try to outsmart me, dragon. What about you? Are you going to go back on your knees to the old man after this? I don't know. I need to guard the Dragon Balls, that's all I do know. Or what do you want to do?
Shenron was looking off into the distance when he said that. He had no idea. The trees then moved slightly with the gentle breeze.
We shall cross that bridge when we get to it.
And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. The training to stop the Saiyans continues. While Shenron and Piccolo are busy preparing Gohan for the invasion, Goku is training with King Kai in the other world, whilst Kami offers special training to the remaining Dragon Team members. During one of those days of training, Shenlang decided to check on Chi-Chi and the Ox King to see how they were feeling with the situation. Sadly, Chi-Chi isn't too happy to see him. In fact, she's livid. How dare you show up here after my husband's death? After allowing that monster to take away my son? Get away from here! You're no longer welcome in this house, dragon!
Chi-Chi, listen. I am only doing this to keep Gohan safe.
Sure you are. Right about now, perhaps. Leaving him alone with Piccolo? Are you insane?
Shenron took a deep and very calm sigh, not raising his voice.
I am sorry. I truly am. I have kept the Dragon Balls safe so we can revive Goku more easily whenever we want. We are also preparing Gohan so he can—
He's 4 years old!
Chi-Chi, he is also half human. This training is meant to keep him safe. Those Saiyans may target him specifically. From what I know, they are an endangered species. You remember that oaf Raditz? What if they want to indoctrinate him? We can't let that happen.
She said nothing for a while. Maybe he had a point, the dragon, but she wasn't willing to admit some sort of defeat.
I am sorry, I truly am. But he was one of 2 beings even capable of hurting Raditz. That's the truth. And those 2 that are approaching, they will be even stronger. We cannot rely solely on Goku. Deep down, you know that.
I want to see him.
Well, Piccolo won't be happy about that.
Do you honestly care more about his state of mind than you care about mine? For the widow who just wants to see her son for a second?
Shenron sighed.
All right. Can it be from afar, though?
As she called the flying nimbus Kintoon, they went to observe the training. And, To Chi-Chi's relief and mild surprise, Gohan looked in good spirits. A little rough around the edges, he hadn't had a bath clearly, but he seemed content with his lot.
Piccolo's grown quite attached to him, you know. He will never admit it, never, but from time to time. We've been giving him survival training. He's always hiding apples for him, just in case he needs them and he can't do the training properly. The Piccolo of old wouldn't have done that, I will admit.
Survival training? Oh, my baby.
Listen, Goku was sent here as a baby himself. From what we have learned, their kind is rather independent. They can live off the fat of the land rather easily.
Will you two keep him safe?
Yes, Chi-Chi, we will.
Do you promise?
Yes, and I will make Piccolo's promise for him. He will speak the same as I.
You know, it's rather funny. Chi-Chi looked at Piccolo from afar. It's almost like his facial features have smoothened out a little bit. He doesn't look that scary anymore.
Yeah, I think so too.
Before Chi-Chi departed, she gave Shenron one long look, the last one for a while.
One more question.
Yes?
Why haven't you visited me personally after Piccolo took Gohan? Why did you send Krillin to do your work? Why couldn't you face me directly? I thought we were friends, Shenron. I'm really confused right now.
The dragon closed his eyes. Yep, he dropped the ball on that one.
I honestly can't tell you, Chi-Chi. As I have said many times, this is all new to me. I don't know.
Well, it's one thing you better learn fast.
What would that be?
Responsibility, she said, giving Gohan one more look before departing on Nimbus, leaving him alone. Shenron headed over to Piccolo and was quite quiet, watching Gohan train with some rocks.
Why did you bring her here? It's her son. She deserves to know it. How did you... You keep forgetting, Dragon. My hearing?
Yes, that's right. Slowly but surely, the fateful day was approaching. Once Goku was ready in the other world, Shenron brought out the Dragon Balls to Kame House, a safe place where his true form was summoned. A lot more agreeably than the last time. You know what? It's funny. He now detests the feeling of transforming into his dragon-like state. This was how he used to look like, but the silver lining out of all of this was the feeling of Goku's essence returning to his original body. That made it worthwhile. It made him happy. Although, when he was transformed and some of the knowledge was made available to him, the cosmic knowledge that was locked to him in his human state, he understood that their Saiyan friend would need to run back on Snake Way all over again. Hopefully, he will make it back to Earth in time. As the Saiyans arrived on Earth, they went to ravage the first city that they had landed in, immediately causing chaos. Next, they headed straight for the strongest power levels they could sense on the planet, that being Piccolo and Gohan, with Shenron close behind. The rest of the Z Fighters, they were also there, but their powers quite a bit lower.
Well, it seems that they have an Namekian amongst them. Aren't they lucky, Nappa?
Vegeta smirked.
Yeah, I heard that their warriors are not total pushovers, though. No wonder. I mean, they could kill rabbits.
This revelation, casual for the Saiyans, shocked both Piccolo and Kami, who then informed Shenron that his ability to create Dragon Balls could have been some sort of innate, instinctive memory. Namekian. That name was ringing in Shenron's mind like crazy. It felt so familiar, but once again, in this state, he could not access more information, but still, he was close to understanding it fully. They didn't have much time to waste, though, to process this information, as the Saiyans sent out a couple of Cybermen after them. Tenshinhan was able to deal with one of them quite easily, whilst Yamcha, he defeats one, only for another one to... Oh no, it's going to explode! But Shenron uses his magic to push the creature away in the nick of time, away from the bandit, thus saving his life. So yeah, we're not getting that mean, folks.
Oh man, thank you, Mr. Lang. Don't mention it, Yamcha. Just Try not to get cocky next time. Be on guard.
Krillin was able to take on 2 Cybermen quite easily with his little limit break, whilst Piccolo dealt with one that was trying to ambush Gohan. Nappa decided that enough was enough. He didn't want to see these Earthlings have the upper hand anymore over their troop, and he entered the fray himself. His first target? Well, Ten Shinhan, who loses an arm, causing Krillin and Chaozu to attempt to rescue him. Sadly, this ends up with an all too well-known misjudged sacrifice of the little guy, which only damages Nappa's armor. Shenron is able to get Ten Shinhan out of the way, and he then mentions Goku to the Saiyans, which tickles Vegeta's fancy. He asks Nappa to wait 3 hours before Kakarot appears, as he wants to punish the Saiyan personally for betraying his own race, and most importantly, getting rid of that dog's body. The bigger of the Saiyans reluctantly complies, but he isn't too happy about this order. He quite enjoyed killing people, and especially strong ones. The remaining fighters try to formulate a plan amongst themselves how to defeat Nappa. Sadly, before Goku arrives, the time given to them runs out. They are forced to fight, with the one-armed Ten Shinhan being removed from the equation entirely, much to his dismay. Nappa, right now, he's toying with the group. He essentially knocks out Shenron cold and mercilessly pounds on Krillin. Whilst being half awake, he witnesses Nappa attempting to kill Gohan, Shenron, with Piccolo getting in the way.
Piccolo! No!
No, this can't be happening, he thought. If Piccolo dies, that means that Kami dies and he... The Namekian falls to the ground, and before taking his last breath, he admits to the boy that he enjoyed his time with him and Shenron, and calls them his friends. Shenron is now terrified, not only because he has lost both his creator and new friend, but also because he is genuinely unsure of what will happen next, what will happen to him. As he then touches his head, that's a lot of dust up there. He hadn't been that dusty before, but then he felt the strength leaving him, and then he collapsed, losing consciousness, and he was sure that the cold embrace of death would soon take him. Shenlong woke up many hours later in a hospital bed. It turns out they had all survived. Well, most of them, except Chaozu and Piccolo. Some of the Z fighters had second thoughts though of Goku allowing that Prince of all Saiyans to escape. But having in mind what became of Piccolo, maybe the Saiyans saw something in him that others didn't. It was hard to say. Yamcha approached Lang slowly.
Mr. Lang, thanks again for saving my life back there.
Think nothing of it, Yamcha.
But I feel very strange.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because, well, your horns and all. My horns?
Shenron touched his head again. There was no dust there, but they were gone. He tried to call upon his powers in the hospital bed, but nothing happened. A panic washed over his body. Yes, he was still alive, but he was now just a regular human. Shenron was no longer Shenron, just Shenlang. He sat up on the bed, bolt upright, as if he'd just experienced a sudden existential terror. Bulma, who was present, looked at him with a lot of concern. Don't worry, if we're correct, there is a way to save Piccolo and Kami.
There is?
Yes, we've learned about Namek, Kami's home world. They must have another set of Dragon Balls there, surely.
That made some sense. Again, that name, Namek, was familiar, but this time, he didn't have any memories of it. Just the name was right.
How would we go about getting to another planet, though? Space travel? Is that even possible?
Well, I tried to retrieve one of the Saiyan vessels, but it exploded on live TV. Oops. But Mr. Popo says that Kami's ship is still available.
Shenlang blinked twice.
Kami's ship?
Yeah. Apparently Kami escaped a cataclysm on Namek when he was very young, but he doesn't remember it.
I need to speak with Mr. Popo.
You're injured. You really shouldn't get out of bed.
But luckily, Yajirobe had arrived just in time to give the wounded the sensu beans that they desperately needed. Sadly, this didn't help Tenshinhan all that much, who was in a bit of a funk right now, and they really didn't think that sensu beans could regrow lost limbs. But of course, no wonder. Right now, reviving Chaozu seemed impossible. There were no Dragon Balls at hand right now. When Lang regained his strength, he decided to fly toward the lookout. Fortunately, this is one ability he hadn't lost.
Shenron, my friend, so glad to see you. I was worried, you see. What would happen to you if it's only Shenlang now? I have lost all of my powers. But you are still alive! That matters more.
The genie patted him on the shoulder.
I am conflicted. The ship, Namekians. Do you think Kami knew all along and kept it a secret from us?
Mr. Popo pondered this for a while.
He knew he was not of this world, but some of his memories were sealed from him. Maybe during the fission process? Maybe he tried to remove anything that could distract him from his godly duties.
Lang closed his eyes.
I see. I know that your last interactions weren't particularly amiable, but he cared for you deeply, you know. And he carried burdens of his own. Then why wasn't he more open about that?
Mr. Popo had a very subdued smile.
Maybe he simply wanted you to figure it out on your own. I failed at that miserably. No, there's room for redemption. What? Tell me, Genie, do you possibly believe that there are Namekians left in this galaxy? There allegedly was a cataclysm. Well, King Kai believes that. I don't. So we are going to Namek and we'll bring them back? That's the plan. You really shouldn't blame yourself for this, Shenlang. I don't know anything anymore. Just try to be your own person. There is so much more to life than duty.
And, as such, it was decided that Gohan, Krillin, Lang, and Bulma would travel to Namek. Chi-Chi wasn't all that thrilled about this, but she trusted Lang to keep Gohan safe. Before bidding farewell to him, she gave him his camera. You appeared to like that when you were at our house. Why don't you try and catalog the trip? Document everything for me, just so I know what my son gets up to.
I will.
After all, I was told that Namekians were a rather peaceful race, so this might be an educational trip for him. And do make sure he keeps up with his studies. She nodded slowly.
I shall.
And before she left, she said one more thing. I'm sorry about Kami and Piccolo, Lang. I know that they were sort of your family.
You, Goku, and Gohan are also my family. I will keep everyone safe.
And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Tormented by his own guilt and focused on protecting his friends, Shenlang, along with Gohan, Bulma, and Krillin, decided to board Kami's ship. There was some sense of familiarity within the vessel, though it has to be said that the dragon, or rather ex-dragon, felt rather peculiar without having any single remnant of his magic left. He would have to learn how to form basic ki projections, something that, before Kami's unfortunate demise, he was able to replicate with his magical fire abilities. And the vessel going to space wouldn't exactly be the most optimal location to train for stuff like that, but nevertheless, he still asked Krillin for help. The little monk was really eager to help him though, but also really confused.
Oh, Mr. Lang, why did you lose your powers with Kami and Piccolo gone? Mr. Popo still seems to be able to use his powers without them there, just fine.
Shenlang rolled his eyes. It's time to fess up.
Because, Krillin, before everything happened, I was the Eternal Dragon. No way! Shenron! Is that you, old buddy? Be quiet or Bulma will hear you. And nowadays it's just Lang. I don't know anymore. It just feels like I've lost a part of myself.
Krillin then scratched his bald head, not really understanding, but he could tell that he was sad though.
Oh, sorry.
That must have been a little bit insensitive of me.
Yes, indeed it was a little bit insensitive. Now, are you going to help me or not?
Well, I mean, we could try not making a hole in the ship, right? That wouldn't be a good thing if we did that. Lang sighed loudly.
No, Krillin, it wouldn't be. We would all be dead.
It took them a little over a month to actually get to planet Namek, and in that time, with Lang and Krillin finding creative ways of training on the ship, they managed to get to work. And one of the most reliable ways in doing so had proven to be image training, something that they had also taught the son of Goku. The ex-dragon was also doing his best to make sure that Gohan was keeping up with his studies, much like what he promised to Chi-Chi, acting like an extra tutor for him alongside Bulma, which was a really good combination. Sadly though, this wasn't a good place to try and take any photos. After taking a few of them, he decided to keep the rest of the film for planet Namek itself. After all, an alien planet felt much more appropriate in terms of documenting the trip with his newfound hobby. It's not every day that you get to go to a completely different world. But throughout all of this, Lang was still worried. He was wondering whether or not Vegeta had been able to lick his wounds and cause problems for other people, or for them in the future, or if he just simply bled out in his pod and died on the way back home. He kinda hoped the latter. On one hand though, Goku wasn't wrong so far about letting people go. He had been right with Piccolo, he still remembered his good old friend. That was still weird to say, friend, Piccolo. Well, he was given the chances and he was proved correct. But nevertheless, the Saiyan though, he felt like an entirely new way of expressing evil. Piccolo seemed rather tame. Also, being a mere manling made him even more scared than before. He felt small. He was well and truly cut out from his divine self, and left only with the mortal form that had been given to him by Kami. He was lucky to even still exist. Was this a gift or a curse? With all of the anger he had recently had toward his master, he began to wonder, was that the goal from the start? To give him existence beyond Kami's own? Was this to save his life? Maybe the old man was more selfless than Lang had given him credit for. That little outburst earlier may have been unnecessary. Even more regrets and guilt started to pile up upon this thought. Because in a way, he was doing all of this because of an obligation. But in all honesty, he really didn't have to do any of this. He was free to, well, as Kami said originally, do whatever he wanted. Was that the intended prize? This freedom setting him down the path to where he is right now? Or was he even the same person anymore as the Eternal Dragon? Was he just someone new who happened to share Shenron's memories? Someone who had merely just became a facsimile of what used to be? Did the original dragon no longer exist and he was just some kind of clone? It was really hard not to have an existential crisis right now, especially when you're in the middle of a really isolated journey toward an alien planet that you've never been to before, yet it's also your home. But finally, after 34 long days, they finally reached it. And when they did, there's a very strange vibe to it. And again, a familiar one. It was like what Lang thought. He felt like he'd been here before, but it was impossible. Well, maybe it was for Shenron who remembered something about this planet, and that something was so deeply ingrained in their own subconscious, their very being, that it had never left completely. Like, the rest of the knowledge had been lost, but the innate memory of existing on this surface, that remained. But after landing on the planet, to their horror, our heroes felt something rather powerful and not natural. Not only that, but thanks to their own dragon radar, Bulma had discovered that two of the Namekian Dragon Balls were next to each other. Somebody was collecting them before they'd even started. But who? Had it been Vegeta? Well, they did notice his pod flying overhead, with another similar vessel close behind, following in its stead. So wait, if Vegeta's here, then who's following him? Krillin said for a second.
The space-time the Saiyans are working for, but how did he know? Did he report back?
Lang looked pale, but trying to remain calm for the boy's sake.
Or maybe, not only the Saiyans were listening to that device.
They all looked at her for a second. What was she going on about?
Oh, that's ominously plausible,
Lang said after a moment. She did have a point. Maybe it wasn't just the Saiyans communicating. Well, we kind of dodged a bullet, as he might not be interested in Earth for the time being. Well, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, but I'd rather not find out what a guy that Vegeta of all people is afraid of wants from the eternal dragon of this planet.
Yeah, that made Krillin feel tense. She could see the fear and capitulated.
All right. I understand your point. I'll keep our camp safe. You three, go and do some scouting.
But before Bulma could actually begin to set up the camp, Banan and Sui appeared. It seemed that the enemy had already sent out a scouting party and had found them. Sui started the introductions by damaging the ship immediately, and the three warriors had no choice but to defend themselves. Luckily for them, these two minions were less of a threat than they had thought, that they were nothing. They managed to get rid of them lickety-split.
Well, okay. Now I gotta do some repairs.
You think you'll be able to fly afterwards?
Lang said with very much a lot of trepidation in his voice.
I'll see what I can do. If you were to find any spare parts for me, that would be great. Bring them here when you do. I think it might be actually easier to bring you one of the smaller ships, like Vegeta's pod.
Gohan chimed in.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Also, hopefully Goku will get here as well. We didn't expect to receive this much trouble.
Lang sighed loudly. The enemies were collecting more Dragon Balls, which was proving to be problematic. They decided to use the radar to eavesdrop on them instead of trying to find the balls, so they could at least try and guess out their enemy. They did manage to get to the outskirts of one Namekian village where an important-looking short alien man with horns was surrounded by a sizable entourage, and of course, given the initial impression, he was threatening the locals. Not only was it pretty unnerving to see so many people resembling his tragically deceased friends, but this overlord, this supposed Frieza, despite his diminutive stature, he seemed terrifying, even more cruel than King Piccolo ever was. He was acting as if he were at the top of the food chain, the apex predator. And most likely, it wasn't just some sort of empty boasting. He probably had the power to back it up. His two main minions also looked scary, but they seemed endlessly loyal to him, probably out of fear and good judgment. But one of the Namekians used his tricks to destroy the scouters of the invaders, which proved to be a really smart move. In the midst of this brutal exchange, one more Dragon Ball was handed over to Frieza and his evil minions to try and stop this bloodshed. And yeah, it was a very bad moment to concentrate on it now, but Lang was sure that these orbs were much bigger than the set that he had been able to produce. He thought for a second about what kind of dragon might be tied to those. He didn't manage to react in time before Gohan slipped away to try and save a Namekian child from the purple left-hand man of Frieza. Our heroes had to engage in a mad dash with this creature, trying to save this young member of Kami's race. Lang was angry, but surprised to understand that Gohan's distaste for cruelty was this big. Good. At least he was a good egg, but still, they were aware that they couldn't fight this menace on their own. Instead, they had to hide their power levels, lulling this Dodoria into a false sense of security. As he was called by his master, they fell back to the ship, only to find a settlement of capsule homes.
I contacted Earth. My father was able to build a vessel that'll get here in 6 days.
Oh, perfect. That means we'll have to only stall Frieza and Vegeta for almost an entire week.
Lang realized that that wasn't so great.
Well, that sounds doable, right? And who's that?
She pointed at the little Namekian, who introduced himself as Dende. Their new friend, thankful for having been saved, told them the story of their planet, the Great Drought, and the Namekian Elder, who might be able to help them with their predicament.
The drought. That must have been the cataclysm that Kami had fled.
Kami? Dende was interested at that name. Lang explained to the boy the story of their own Namekians, as far as they knew, which amazed the boy. He further explained to the group that only the elder from a dragon clan is capable of creating Dragon Balls at all, and that the final orb lied with said member of their society on a special tower. The leader, whom they call Guru, had discovered that the remaining 6 were divided between 2 parties, one that they knew of Frieza, and the second they guessed being Vegeta. The group then decided to follow that lead, nearly having a close encounter with Vegeta as well. Luckily, thanks to Krillin's quick thinking, or should I say, quack thinking, they were able to avoid the Saiyan Prince barely. When they finally got to the settlement, they were greeted by a fierce Namekian warrior, stated to be the strongest one on the planet. That surprised Lang because the person seemed to be an exact replica of Piccolo. Originally, he even attempted to attack the group before Dende was able to explain the entire situation to him and make him fall back. His name, this warrior, was Nail, and he was Guru's personal bodyguard.
You're in luck. Lord Guru's time is nearing the end, and everything that is happening here doesn't help his already poor health.
When they stood before the Namekian, Lang was surprised at how large the Namekian was. He seemed, though, as kindly as he was massive. After some short introductions, Lang told him the story of Kami and Piccolo.
So, the son of Katasa survived. It warms my heart.
Katas.
He was a brilliant Namekian who wanted to save his son when the catastrophe struck us. He was a dear friend. I am pleased to know that his legacy has survived in some shape or form amongst the stars.
Well, not anymore. But we are interested in righting that wrong.
Do you think you can stop the strangers to our planet?
Guru looked at them rather inquisitively.
Well, we don't know, but our friend that is coming here should be able to. Hopefully.
Krillin was starting to sweat on his forehead as Lang was stating his case.
You there. Come closer.
The elder waved at Lang.
There is something familiar about you.
I know that it might sound strange, but I used to be the Earth's eternal dragon.
The old man seemed mildly surprised by this admission.
How so?
My creator gave me this body at some point in the not-so-distant past. Now that he is gone, no longer with us, I have lost all of my powers, even those that weren't locked within the Dragon Balls.
There was a long pause.
I see. Maybe if this terrible conflict is averted, we should be able to grant you an audience with our dragon known as Porunga.
Porunga?
Yes, he might be able to help you with some pain that you hold within yourself. I can sense it, but I cannot offer you much more, as your condition is a rare one. I can, however, draw on the hidden potential of you and your friends.
The Namekian's massive hand landed atop of his head, right where his horns used to be. And then, something changed within him. It was like a small kindling was starting to spark. Flames were lighting up inside his body. They were starting to burn again, with a brilliant living flame. It still wasn't his old set of skills, but it was something new. Guru then quickly did the same to Gohan as well as Krillin, which increased the odds of them being able to survive all of this. With that new power boost, our heroes decided to try something bold, lure out Vegeta, much to the initial protests of Nail, which allowed Gohan and Lang to find his hiding spot within a lake. So that was getting a little bit sneaky there. With that, the two of them were able to empty the prince's stash and take all of the Dragon Balls for themselves, seeing from afar as he was then ambushed by Zarbon. So he wasn't going to be chasing them anytime soon. Well, I won't be feeling bad for him. But still though, Frieza has the other 4. How are we going to get those? Our heroes had no answer to that so far. And using the opportunity, as well as the downtime, Lang decided to then go and approach Nail for some one-on-one training.
You only had several days for that powerful friend of yours to arrive. I doubt you can gain anything in that time.
The Namekian warrior seemed skeptical.
I need to get a sense of my new potential. Could you honor my request? I want to make it right with my own elder. Surely you understand.
Nail crossed his arms, but nodded slowly. Oh, that stoicism, that was very Piccolo. The Namekian was definitely on a whole other level, much more stronger than anyone he had ever seen, as his movements and power were completely remarkable. even more than the likes of Zarbon when he used it on Vegeta. But still, Lang discovered that some of his techniques came to him naturally, just as if he already knew them for years, which surprised his sparring partner greatly. He wasn't as strong as him, no, but what this was proving was that Lang was a fast learner.
Huh. Not bad, Dragon. Thank you, Mighty Nail.
Bulma then talked to them via the communication device.
Listen, we got a problem. It seems Vegeta was able to survive his meeting with Zarbon.
Well, that's an issue.
And he's heading your way.
Lang blinked twice.
That's an even bigger issue.
They would have to be ready, and hopefully, Goku will get there soon. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Hey folks, MasakoX here. We continue once more with our story of Shenlong, who was once the Eternal Dragon, who, in the last part, if you may remember, struggled with the loss of his powers after the demise of Kami. Traveling to space with the likes of Gohan, Bulma and Krillin, he then starts to find himself adapting to his truly human form and reluctantly learning how to harness basic ki projections. But Krillin, even though he's confused, he's eager to help out Lang with his training. And on said journey, Lang also takes on the role of tutor for Gohan, so he keeps up with his studies and makes sure that Chi-Chi doesn't get mad. But despite their efforts, Lang is still haunted by the thoughts of Vegeta's fate. What happened to him? His own diminished state as well. Pondering about the intentions of his creator Kami still. And he was gone. And he's still questioning himself. Is he really a human or is he just a halfway house? But either way, the group's arrival on planet Namek, where they face the challenges of an alien environment and the looming threat of Vegeta, who had indeed survived, and then on top of the space tyrant Frieza? Yeah, Lang's grappling with his new mortal limitations right now, and Kami's death, so he's not exactly having the best time right now. The only thing that's really keeping him going is the likes of Gohan and making sure that he is safe. And yeah, Frieza's already collecting the Namekian Dragon Balls. So after an intense counter with Frieza's minions Baran and Sui, that leads to a battle, and the group is able to narrowly escape, taking refuge in a settlement of capsule homes. Now Gohan, moved by his own sense of justice and wanting to do Lang proud, bravely intervenes to save a young Namekian named Dende. Said Little Green introduces the group to the Namekian Elder Guru, who recognizes Lang's unique situation and helps him tap into his hidden potential. This could pay dividends later. This newfound power does boost the group's abilities as well. Try and outsmart Vegeta and Frieza because they can't just beat them with brute strength. Lang, seeking to understand and enhance his power, trains with Nail, a powerful Namekian warrior, way stronger than any of them, and learns about his new techniques and adapts to his new body. However, their challenges escalate when they learn that Vegeta was coming his way and had survived his encounter with Zarbon. The group braces for an impending confrontation, hoping, really hoping, for Goku's timely arrival, which is where we resume. Nail and Lang looked at each other nervously. Nail decided to break the ice after what felt like hours of silence.
This Vegeta, he's a friend of yours?
He said with a wry smile. Lang didn't really see the funny side of this and gravely shook his head.
Far from it. You should know from what he has been doing around here.
Nail waved his hand. Yeah, I'm aware. He's been a major pest who thankfully hasn't been bothering the likes of us since he got here.
Well, until now, for obvious reasons. I take it you two have met before?
Lang nodded.
Yes. Vegeta and his former lackey tried to take our Dragon Balls after their even lackier lackey informed them of them. They were not successful, fortunately. Or else we wouldn't be here to ask for aid.
Nail looked quietly confident.
So you were able to defeat him then? Not I. Son Goku was the one to do that, with a little help from his son, who you have met. But in any case, he is not meant to be messed with, and if he was able to take down the right hand of our foe with relative ease after succumbing earlier, who knows how much stronger he has become since our last encounter.
Nail closed his eyes and concentrated, before saying nothing. Lang wasn't sure what he was doing. Had he started meditating like Piccolo would often do? It didn't look like the usual sort of meditation. Don't tell me, he thought, he was getting a quick power nap. But no, Nail was completely immovable, right up to the point when the Prince of All Saiyans arrived, which then prompted Lang to instinctively panic and jump behind the napping Nail. Vegeta looked powerful. He felt it too, as he stood in front of the two warriors. He turned his head to see the quivering green hair behind Nail.
I know you,
He smiled devilishly as he said that.
You're part of Kakarot's Light Brigade. I don't recall you being much of a threat. But I do recall you being much of a coward, as you are proving to me right now.
He shot a ki blast at the wall of the Temple of Gurus, just as a warning shot.
Come out from there! Show some guts!
Nail, still with his eyes shut, was not going to help him right now, so Lang gulped and grudgingly stepped out from the Namekian's shadow. His demeanor was not that of a plucky challenger, let's just say that. Vegeta smirked.
My goodness, how you have fallen from grace in such a short time. I can sense you are but a shell of your former self.
Lang's eyes widened. How would he know that? He didn't have those scouter things, that beeping thing. That was supposedly able to tell him all about their power levels or something, or where they were going. They didn't need to sense energy themselves. But wait, the prince could tell that Lang's ghast was flabbered right now, and he chuckled.
Don't ask me how, but my little visit to your home planet left me with a very unusual gift. A useful one, though. I can read your energy like a book, and that book has seemingly had most of its pages ripped out of it. You're no threat to me, nor is your big green friend over there.
The spotlight turned to Nail, who was still not responding, even to these taunts. Vegeta was now starting to get annoyed at this indifference, this lack of acknowledgement.
Not going to defend your cowardly dog, Namekian?
Nothing. Lang was transfixed right now. How could Nail be so calm? Vegeta's energy was much stronger than even since they had arrived on the planet just a few days ago. Whatever he was doing, all it was succeeding in doing was pissing off the prince.
Say something! I order you to answer me!
The prince shot a ki blast again at Nail, hoping that would startle him. It didn't. Without a single trace of nervous tension, Nail, with his eyes still shut, deflected the blast right back at Vegeta in a flash. The prince could barely get out of the way, the heat of the energy singeing some of his hair. The only reaction to that success? A small smirk from the Namekian.
Stand back, Lang,
he muttered.
I got this.
Lang did as he was told and moved back. Vegeta recomposed himself and shot a glower at Nail, who had now opened his eyes fully and was looking very smugly back at the prince.
Pathetic. And here I thought you would provide me a challenge. All this has proven to me is that you're nothing but a desperate fool seeking glory. Whatever it takes. The lives you snuffed out back there not meaning anything to you.
His stance adjusted slightly.
Well, I'll give their lives meaning to you.
Instantly, Nail rushed forward and began to dominate the fight without question between he and the prince. Vegeta was completely floored. How had the Namekians been hiding such a strong force like that? Where was this earlier? None of the other warriors that he had encountered were anything close to this guy, and the rest of them were completely placid. This Namekian's power was way more than any of them. This was incredibly ridiculous. Not even Zarbon could touch this. It was looking less and less likely he was going to be getting that last Dragon Ball. Little did he know, though, that it was already gone. So what he had done, coming here and getting a beatdown, was completely pointless. Other than giving him another case of the ouchies. Lang was reading the fight rapidly and could sense that, yes, Vegeta had gotten stronger since Earth, but Nail had increased in power too since they had started training. He couldn't quite sense why this had been the case, how both of them had rapidly increased their power in such a short space of time. It was much quicker than it was on Earth, much more so than Lang was ever able even to comprehend in his full dragon-like aura. I mean, here, with his potential unlocked, and as a whole human, he was potentially stronger than he was on Earth being a full dragon. Just imagine how much he could gain when his eternal energy was restored to him. Wait, Why was he so scared? He should be helping his new friend. With Vegeta completely on the back foot, without Nail so much as breaking a sweat, Lang seized the moment and surged forward, doing the best he can, keen to not be the coward that the Monkey Man had deemed him to be. With both of these beings on him, Vegeta had simply no answer to this, even with the power boost that he had gotten from fighting and surviving Zarbon. No, he was losing. Again. No matter what he did, he was unable to keep up with these fools. Lang was feeling pretty good now. What he was doing was actually helping. He felt for the first time in a long while useful, but just then, Nail judo chopped Vegeta on the back of the neck, knocking him out cold. The Saiyan falling to the floor with a thud. Lang was surprised.
What? Why did you stop, Nail? We could kill this monster! Avenge those who had fallen to his greed!
Nail could sense that Lang was fired up right now, wanting blood, specifically Saiyan blood, and he looked at him with a stoic expression.
No, that would be a waste of potential. Yeah, he's not as strong as I, but his rapid increase, something to note.
Potential,
the dragon repeated back with confusion. Don't tell me you're going to try and get him to fight for us.
Nail nodded.
I don't see why not. His spirit is extremely fragile. This encounter will have him shattered for the second time in days. He'll be persuaded easily.
Lang had no idea what kind of sick game Nail was playing right here, but the Guardian wasn't making this up as he was going along with it. When Vegeta came to, he found himself chained up in front of a very rotund, giant old Namekian, gazing down at him with a mixture of seriousness and sadness.
Welcome back to the land of the living, Saiyan.
Vegeta's initial reaction was to grab the Dragon Ball atop the old man's... Wait, it's not there. Then he felt the chains holding him in place.
Release me, old man! You have no idea who you are dealing with!
The pain returned to him from the fight with Nail really quickly. He regretted coming to. He was grimacing as he fell back to the floor. Speaking of, Nail appeared by his elder and shook his head.
Don't think of trying anything funny, Prince. Be grateful you're still alive. I could have killed you back there. But you have to hear what Guru has to say, or I'll make you.
Vegeta reluctantly looked at the elder.
Speak your piece, and then end this charade.
His spirit faltering once more at the sight of Nail. Lang was behind them in the doorway, unable to face Vegeta, and still not buying this idea one bit. But he was willing to hear them out.
Prince Vegeta,
said Guru without a trace of derision.
I can tell you are a troubled soul, subjected to servitude, your homeworld destroyed, and your entire life ruled by darkness. Your only saving grace is the power you wield to inflict your pain on others, killing those who do not deserve death, eliminating potential before it may be realized. I feel your pain, but your actions will not cease said pain, only ease it.
Vegeta was not looking the old man in the eye, not wanting to show any trace of weakness.
You know it to be true, Vegeta. You lack purpose. You lack guidance, stability, friends. These three pillars of life you desperately seek. You need not topple others to find yours. Let us help you right the wrongs that befall your existence and set you on the path toward your own inner peace.
Even though Lang wasn't watching this unfold entirely, he could still hear what Guru was saying to Vegeta, and he was amazed with the eloquence, the patience, and the verbiage on display. The patience of the sage being for someone so cruel and petty? The assuredness was admirable. Maybe this might work. Vegeta, though, was trying to resist this Namekian dogma, but this one was speaking the truth. He did lack guidance, stability, allies, but the Dragon Balls and immortality were still very enticing goals. This fool wouldn't rid him of that aspiration.
Even if you're right, old man, you cannot extinguish my Saiyan pride, the pride of the Saiyan race.
He then looked to the elder with fire in his eyes.
I will not be patronized too! How dare you think you can win against I, the Prince of all Sing...
Vegeta's face went from anger to panic in a second flat. Nail and Lang's faces twitched as well. What they must have felt was unanimous. 5 energies out in the depths of space were approaching at a fantastic speed.
No,
said Vegeta weakly, his rage crumbling into dust. Again, the spirit he had briefly reattained falling away again. Worse this time.
they are coming.
Lang turned around and walked toward the scene.
What? Who's coming?
Vegeta, now in no position to resist, looked to Lang, not caring he was a coward or lesser than he. It didn't matter right now.
The Ginyu Force. You think that Zarbon and Dodoria were trouble? These monsters are even worse, far stronger than those two combined. We don't stand a chance unless you allow me to use the Dragon Balls and gain immortality so that we can stop them. You have to trust me.
Vegeta seized the opportunity, trying to just appease their desire for trust, begging for the chance to gain this power, but nobody was convinced. Guru shook his head.
We cannot grant you that.
Vegeta looked terrified.
Are you mad? We're all going to die if you don't give me what I need.
Nail scoffed at those words. There it is. Want. You don't need this power. You want this power still. Doesn't matter even in the midst of great peril. Your selfish desires ring out clear as day. You can't be trusted. Lang then approached.
No, he speaks the truth. He wants to help.
Nail looked puzzledly at Lang. How can you be so sure?
Having lost my powers and sensed true fear for the first time in my life, I can tell when another is experiencing said emotion.
Vegeta is genuine. Well, as genuine as a Saiyan can be. Vegeta turned away. Perhaps we can find a halfway house, as they say on my planet. He looked to Guru.
Unlock his potential, Elder, if you may. It may not be immortality, but it's a damn sight better than that pitiful display he showed us earlier.
What? Vegeta snarled, completely forgetting about the Ginyus arriving.
I am still stronger than you.
Guru nodded. Acceptable. If we grant you this, Saiyan, you must promise not to end any more innocent lives after this day. We will bestow you your full potential as a sign of our trust, to defend our planet and perhaps finally free you of your prison under Frieza. Do you understand?
Vegeta was fighting his tooth and nail. But the chance for an immediate power boost without having to be near the brink of death? That was better than having another dunk in a tank for hours. In the end, he stood up and nodded.
Fine, let's get this over with.
Very well,
said the elder, and bade the prince to approach his side. And within seconds, Vegeta felt a surge of energy unlock from inside of him. Nail and Lang watched on, nervous. What would Vegeta do with this new power? Whatever it was incredibly immense. This potential was frightening. And when Vegeta stepped away from the elder, he clenched his fist and felt the power coursing through his body as if it were natural. His injuries healed as well, his mind clear. He felt all powerful again. The Ginyu Force? Nothing to him now. He turned to Lang, Guru, and Nail, them looking petrified, presuming he would kill them right on the spot. But no, that wouldn't be right. They had put a lot of faith in him to do something about this situation like this. Something so reckless on the surface? That was laudable in his mind. Even though he was completely bloodthirsty, he knew about honor.
Well then, what are we waiting for?
The two warriors looked puzzled.
Let's go meet the travelers and make them right at home, as this will be their final resting place.
He was not in the mood right now to welch on this deal. This was too good a thing to pass up. No, he wouldn't do something so petulant right now. He had the tools now, finally, to wipe that godforsaken smirk off of Captain Ginyu's face once and for all. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Hey folks, MasakoX here, and welcome back. Shenlong, formerly the Eternal Dragon, continues to adjust to his now mortal form, as you may all be aware, whilst also journeying now to Namek with the likes of Gohan, Bulma, and Krillin. And whilst he's on this journey, Lang is grappling with the loss of his powers, and in the last part, the group was encountering Frieza's minions on Namek, learning of Frieza's pursuit of the Dragon Balls. Thanks, Vegeta. They narrowly escape a confrontation and are able to take refuge, with Gohan being able to save the young Namekian Dende from certain doom. Then Dende leads them as a reward to Guru, the Namekian elder, who is able to unlock all of their hidden potential, including Lang's. The prince does confront them both, and despite his increased power thanks to his Zenkai, he is unable to get anywhere against Nail and Lang as support. And after an intense battle, with Nail outmatching Vegeta clearly and ultimately sparing his life, he is able to try and get the prince to join sides. And Guru, sensing Vegeta's internal conflict and lack of direction, is able to try and offer some guidance. And then something does come to help them, in the sense that the Ginyu Force are arriving, and reluctantly, this is what gets Vegeta to agree, and then Guru, as a treat, unlocks his potential, giving him his immense power without having to be in the Takpa tank, and despite the initial doubts, he is able to fully commit. He has actually had some faith thrown his way, and he's a prince, he does have a sense of honor, so either way, he is now empowered. That's what matters to him at the most. He is strong, he is powerful, he can do this, he feels great. He is going to make a significant shift in the dynamic of the Frieza Force, and he can't wait to take it out on Captain Ginyu. So now we are ready, folks, to resume with anticipation for the ensuing battle and how the group's newfound alliance and strengths will fare against these new powerful enemies. Get the Ginyus? Maybe get Frieza? Maybe.
Zarbon and Dodoria were no pushovers, men. These fools are clearly dangerous if left unchecked. I mean, not toward I, of course, but I will not stand idle and let them run amok and ruining my plans any longer. They have had their fun, and it's up to you to make that painfully clear. Understood.
At once, Lord Frieza, barked out the likes of Captain Ginyu and his men, and they set off in hot pursuit to search for the remaining Dragon Balls. Or the fools that had angered their leader at the very least, whichever came first. As for those 3 missing balls, the likes of Gohan, Bulma, and Krillin were counting their oh-so-lucky stars that Vegeta had been dealt with, but they then felt that surge in power from Guru's tower from a very considerable distance. Judging what they had happened there, they pretty much assumed what happened next.
No, was Nail not strong enough to stop him?
Bulma was understandably a little nervous of Nail falling to the likes of Vegeta, but at least with them under cover and the Dragon Balls kept out of sight, they managed to get some time to be able to do that. There would be no reason as to why the prince would suddenly discover them, because they obviously didn't know he could sense energy and he didn't have a scouter. Nail and Shenron had been long enough for them to be able to get into some sort of safety, for now. And speaking of, the trio at Guru's tower were prepared to face the Force head-on, with Vegeta taking the lead. Nail wasn't all that happy going along with this, letting the Saiyan that killed his fair share of Namekians take charge. It just felt wrong, but Guru was fine with it, and as Lang pointed out, it was a small victory just to even get him to play along. They needed every strong person they could get. And besides, said Lang in addendum, I'm sure that Guru knows what he's doing. He wouldn't blindly give someone like that their full potential for no good reason. Nail had to admit, Guru was a damn hand at reading people. He'd be making these mistakes. Yeah, I guess you're right. Sure enough, the trio were able to locate the energies of the quintet and head them off at the pass. It was very foolish, but it did ensure that their friends wouldn't run foul of them. The Ginyus, unaware of their ability to be able to sense energy without scouters, wasted no time in mocking their stupidity. Not only are these fools unfortunate to run into the likes of us, the Ginyu Force, but they were too stupid to turn tail and run at the first sight. Isn't that silly? Yeah, Captain, barked Jace. Incredible dullards they are. Ginyu was so amused that he was prepared to offer them his mercy. Tell you what, peons. As entertaining I'm sure your deaths will be for me, especially yours, Vegeta, I am a busy man. You'll have to make do with my crew ending your lives instead of I. Sound like a plan, my fellows? His men nodded in unison and hollered. Excellent. No rush, by the way. I am quite capable of looking for some orange balls by myself. Now, have fun, you all. And with that, Ginyu just left the scene. His men, they thought they were just walking into an easy win. Jace, the second in command, took great relish in assuming that they would be the stronger, and then called upon the small green jerk named Goldo to start off proceedings with some temporal hijinks. And by the way, folks, just so you know, he is working on that. And that is something that Vegeta had warned Nail and Lang about prior to their meeting. With that information in mind, Lang was quiet. He didn't speak throughout this whole interaction. Stopping time, Well, he understood how time worked, Shenlang, or should I say, Shenron. Sure, he may not have his eternal dragon powers on tap right now, but he still understood the concept of time. That was still in his arsenal. He didn't think that it would be of use until now, knowing that such a being as Goldo existed, and with this newfound potential he had unlocked and all of the training with Nail, he might stand a chance against him. Lang stepped forward and faced Goldo.
So, a willing volunteer to demonstrate my powers to all, eh?
Chuckled the Green Ginyu Force member. Lang looked disinterestedly back at him.
You could say that. I know you can stop time, by the way.
Goldo was perturbed by his calmness, but no matter.
Well, who's to say I haven't stopped it already?
He turned to Vegeta.
You must have done this. You spoiled my techniques, you overgrown monkey.
Vegeta smirked.
I would apologize, but I'm finding this all too satisfying. Continue, Dragon Man.
Lang got into position.
I'm waiting.
Goldo was getting angry and promptly began to hold his breath. Instantly, the flow of the stuff ceased around him, and Goldo merrily pranced along toward Lang, who remained still as a statue, as typical, and proceeded to grab onto his legs to try and intimidate this fool into submission. For a second, he thought about letting go of his breath and then just trying to spook. But then, just as he was about to do that, Lang's eyes moved and looked down at him.
Hello.
Goldo was scared out of his mind and fell backwards, time resuming.
Goldo,
said Berta with mild confusion.
what's going on? Why are you all flustered?
Lang replied.
He lost track of time, you see.
He smiled at Goldo with genuine catharsis.
Care for me to tell you what time it is?
Goldo wanted answers and promptly stopped time again. Using sign language, he frantically wanted to know how Lang could move in non-time. This was impossible for anyone other than I or anyone skilled in the art. Lang chuckled.
Oh, you think the flow of time is your ally, but you merely adopted it. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't realize this until I was reborn a man. By then it was nothing to me but fleeting.
He was really enjoying this. He then rushed to Small Fry and began to wail on him before then strangling him. Yes, this was quite barbaric for the likes of he, but he understood that a mortal being such as this, that could bend time, was not somebody that should be allowed to roam free in the midst of a battle. It could only cause trouble and mischief, and right now, this was not something that would help. And he could help. Goldo's eyes were bulging out of their sockets, and the breath he so desperately needed to draw to resume time was not aiding him when he needed it most. Seconds later, he lost consciousness and promptly bit the dust. His passing, restoring time, and the pair of them reappearing some distance away with Goldo dead. The remaining trio were left stunned. How? How was that possible? How could Goldo succumb to somebody they thought was so weak and had been so mute? That time ability was bulletproof before now as well. Without a second to lose, Berta rushed over to Lang to avenge his fallen comrade and punched him in the gut, which did hurt the Dragon Man.
You've got some nerve doing that. You will pay for what you did to Galdo.
But before Berta could strike Lang again, Vegeta tapped him on the shoulder.
Fast enough for you, Berta?
Berta hadn't sensed him approach. He hadn't expected him to be so fast. He was the fastest in the universe, and then he'd been outfasted. But before he could respond, Vegeta began to wail on the blue man, allowing Lang to escape and get some distance from the rest of the group. As for Nail, he was busy tackling Raccoon, and thanks to his training with Lang, he had just about enough power to have the upper hand. The Dragon Man was looking at the whole battle unfold, and fortunate that Jace, the red one, was not getting involved. He was scared out of his mind. Clearly, the Force had never seen such resistance counter them before. Thankfully. He said to himself, somewhat tired.
Good thing that small one was so weak. If he had been much stronger, that stunt may have backfired horribly.
He was counting his lucky stars when another power came into his field of sensing. Yes, he recognized it clear as day. Son Goku. He was in orbit. He had arrived. As that was going on, the group in the caves could sense Goku's arrival and thought that this might be the right time to grab the other Dragon Balls from right under Frieza's nose. Bulma was keen to do so, as she didn't want to spend any longer on this planet now Goku was here to take up the slack. Surely Frieza will be preoccupied with this to not notice us sneaking and grab them from him. Krillin was nervous about this, because he had no idea how Frieza operated, but she did have a point. They did kind of want to leave, and no time like the present. With Gohan in tow and Dende following close by for safety, the group headed for Frieza's ship, with Dende being reminded by Guru via telepathy of the password needed to unlock Porunga should they be successful. Sure enough, Frieza was intrigued by Goku's arrival, but not enough to go and get involved because he was quite enthralled with the action playing out on his replaced scouter. With their powers hidden, thanks Krillin's stealth mode, the group managed to sneak onto the ship and subdue anyone that got in their way quietly, not killing them, but knocking them out to avoid any upset. Thankfully, the balls had been secured in Frieza's living quarters and not his throne room where he was presently, which meant that they could just walk in, grab them, and of course promptly skedaddle out of the nearest window, blasting it open and fleeing as fast as they could get away with. Back at the fight, Goku was busy making himself very much known in the midst of the Ginyus, well, the remaining Ginyus, with he and the trio making light work of Raccoon, Berta, and even Jace. In the distance, Captain Ginyu had been having very little luck finding the missing orbs, but then he did spot the quartet, including Dende, flying at great speed away from Frieza's ship with the Dragon Balls that Frieza had acquired. "Thieves!" he roared, and was about to fly after them, but then his scouter started to beep frantically, bursting into life, proclaiming that something bad was going down where his men were. They, it turned out, were in deep trouble, their powers fading rapidly before each of them was starting to disappear completely.
What? What's going on here?
He bashed his scouter to check if it was faulty, but no faults reported. They were either badly wounded or... No, he had no choice but to go and check on his men. They didn't have all of the Dragon Balls. That could wait. They couldn't work the balls anyway. The child Namekian, they wouldn't know how to use them, right? Right? Well, he rushed back to the battle and just checked on them, and then he could go back after them in a second, because he was really fast. He arrived in time to see all of his men on the floor, motionless. Ginyu was furious and demanded to know who was responsible for this. Goku was the one to step forward, although it was a group effort really. With Goku's Kaioken ability on full display, the first time Lang seeing this by the way, since in the previous part he had been knocked out, he could now sense Goku's power increase violently and instantly. Whoa! Lang thought they could win easily.
Don't be so sure, Dragon Man,
said Vegeta with seriousness.
He can only sustain that technique for a moment. I know only too well its limitations. Let's hope Ginyu doesn't figure this out.
Lang turned back to the fight, and Goku was still clearly dominating the battle. Well, okay, he'll take that. He and Nail weren't needed to save the day after all. Well, don't be so sure, Lang. Meanwhile, the other group put all 7 Dragon Balls together on the ground, and Dende was ready to summon Porunga. As the dragon was awoken, Lang could see the sky turn black, as could Nail. Vegeta was not privy to how the Dragon Balls worked in this particular facet, and Goku and Ginyu were distracted fighting each other. Frieza paid it no mind because he was also not aware of the inner machinations of summoning eternal dragons. He just assumed put the Dragon Balls down and they just would work. But Lang knew what it was. Porunga, he correctly guessed. The dragon Porunga was summoned and promptly asked Dende in his native tongue what their wishes would be. They found out that they could only wish back one person at a time and quickly chose to bring back Piccolo to existence, as that would mean that Kami would be revived back on Earth and those Dragon Balls would be restored to full working order. Hey, said Krillin, that'll also mean Lang will be strong again, right? Bulma was confused. Why would the Dragon Balls make Lang stronger by summoning Piccolo? Gohan clocked onto this too and he looked thrilled.
Yeah, Lang can use his dragon power to get...
The two boys froze in place and realized their mistake, slowly turning to Bulma, who looked absolutely shocked. She'd figured it out.
Dragon powers? Lang? No way. You're saying that Shenlang is Shenron?
The boys meekly nodded and Bulma just smacked her head.
Why didn't I figure this out sooner? The name was staring me in the face. How could I not see that?
She was kicking herself right now, lamenting a blindness to the nomenclature that was so obvious. Krillin had figured it out before her. Dende, to avoid any awkward tension, made the wish and Porunga promptly obliged. On Earth, both Piccolo and Kami had regained consciousness and were immediately back up to full strength and cognizance. Mr. Popo was ecstatic to see his master alive once more.
Mr. Popo, where exactly is Shenron? On Namek, Master. It turns out that his human form endured once you and Piccolo were slain. It's a miracle.
Kami closed his eyes and smiled.
No, Mr. Popo. That was by design. I'm glad that I was right. Now, gather the Dragon Balls, my friend. We must be ready to use them.
But Master, with Shenron presently on Namek, will they work as intended?
We cannot waste time speculating. We are needed. We must do our part.
With that, the genie began his search, which obviously wouldn't take long. Meanwhile, Goku and Ginyu had been duking it out, and the latter was very much struggling to keep it together. He was being bested. He'd lost his men. The last time that happened, he smiled devilishly.
Well, Mr. Son Goku, you have proven to be a very impressive adversary. I might even understand your need to brutally eviscerate my men, but I'm afraid that your time undermining me is at an end.
He then punched a hole in his own chest and threw everybody off guard before shouting those immortal words, "Change now!" and promptly took control of Goku's body. But whilst Ginyu was getting used to this body, another body was metamorphosing itself, and energy overtook the scene, even catching Frieza's attention. Shenlang felt a huge wave of energy cascade over him, an energy that had deserted him not that long ago, but had returned.
Welcome home, he said to himself with great calmness. He could feel his horns growing from his skull again.
No pain though, only a tingling sensation. Felt so good. Then, the rush of power exploded from his very soul. He roared with a bellow and an echo. When the dust settled, Lang looked stronger and buffer than ever. His usually skinnier frame had filled out slightly, his irises glowing redder than ever. This had turned out to be very advantageous. Not only had his eternal dragon powers returned to him, but the potential he had unlocked in his fully human form, mixed with training with Nail, had unearthed a remarkable concoction of strength that not even he was aware could be wielded. He knew now he could make a difference. He had grown stronger than anyone here. Ginyu Goku looked on with confusion. What? What are you? Shenron looked at the pale imitation of his dear friend, and the voice echoed thus.
I am the eternal dragon, Shenron.
And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. To say that Frieza was furious was a grave understatement. Someone was trying to snatch away his wish from him. He then decided to investigate the location of this gigantic creature, which had to be the Eternal Dragon, because it looked like a dragon. He guessed that relying on the Ginyu Force was clearly too much to ask. Little did he know, they were pretty much nearly all gone. Meanwhile, Lang was eyeing up Goku Ginyu. He felt revitalized in a way, and he still had one wish, but still, their worries were slightly increasing as a powerful being was approaching them. Frieza was on the move. Well, Lang, you think he can handle that? Ale eyed the body-swapped Goku while talking to the dragon.
I will try. What are you planning?
Well, I'm planning to give you some more time. Let's hope your other friend can reach you then.
Before Lang could protest, the Namekian was already gone. Well, he had to help Goku get his body back, of course. That was the absolute priority. He felt the increase in power that he got once Kami had returned to life, and it was remarkable.
All right, ruffian. I am giving you a chance to give Goku's body back willingly. You won't be able to use it to its full potential anyway.
What? Who do you think you are?
As I said before, I am the eternal dragon of Earth, and I wish for you to get out of my friend's body,
he said as the wall of fire was created around himself and the captain. Vegeta lost for words. This fool was weaker than him, or Ginyu a while back. What on earth happened? Well, technically, what did happen on Earth, Vegeta. The captain charged at him, but Lang simply dodged his attack. It was like a weird kind of dance in a way, and he quickly realized that whatever had happened, he was clearly being outclassed. This swapping of bodies had done nothing. But it wouldn't end like this, no. He knew that his body was pretty powerful, so the least he could do was maybe try and sabotage it. Before Shenron could react, he hurt himself with his own hand.
What are you doing?
There are other ways to make you suffer, Ginyu smiled, blasting a huge gap in his own chest. Again, Shenron glared at him. Still, this fool wouldn't be so stupid as to kill Goku. He needed a stronger body, and he knew what he would do next, so he decided to stay calm. Change now! The alien roared as the beam went straight toward Lang. With a subtle flick of the hand and a twist of the wrist, much to the shock of everyone involved, them expecting Lang to dodge, the dragon simply redirected the beam that hit Goku in Ginyu's body. As the Saiyan collapsed to the ground, Gohan and Krillin appeared by his side.
How?
Ginyu was shocked.
How did you?
Lang shook his head.
You still don't understand, Captain, do you? I am the Eternal Dragon. My soul is split inside multiple bodies and multiple objects. You will never be able to swap places with all of my soul.
You're lying! There was fear and disbelief in Ginyu's gaze.
There is no being that I couldn't. I will prove it to you. That was just a fluke. Change?
Don't try it.
No!
As the beam once again left his body, Shenron just raised his finger and redirected it, this time at a tree. Instantly, Ginyu collapsed to the ground, completely catatonic.
I warned him.
Lang sighed, then turned his head round to Goku.
Goku, are you all right?
Yeah, you got me good, old friend.
We need to find a way to heal him. Maybe we can take him back to Dende. Where did the Namekian dragon go?
Right, yeah, Porunga. Oh, he was nowhere to be seen. What was even more worrying was that they could not sense Guru anymore. It seemed that the comments of the old man being on death's door were not exactly exaggerated. This was not done to effect. He must have bitten the dust.
Guru is gone, and so with him, the Namekian Dragon Balls.
Wait! If he's gone, then my immortality...
We stand no chance against Frieza.
Lang looked at the prince for a second.
Maybe we can, if we nurse Goku back to health. We might be able to stop him. We also have Dragon Balls back on Earth, Saiyan, so we can wish Guru back if need be.
Vegeta was still, quite frankly, annoyed by what had happened, and honestly, quite scared of Frieza. Also Piccolo! We need to meet up with Piccolo! Krillin added. Vegeta shook his head.
All right, the Namekian is keeping Frieza at bay. Maybe we can use the healing pod on his ship.
Sounds risky, but was it the same thing that healed you?
Yes it was. Let's not waste any more time gossiping.
And so, the group ventured toward Frieza's ship, where Gohan and Krillin were equipped with brand new Saiyan armor because their current stuff was pretty scuffed up, whilst Goku was put inside the Takpa tank. But to their biggest worry, those who could sense energy had then realized that Nail's energy was now starting to fade, and Frieza was heading toward them. They had to be ready and keep him away from Goku for as long as they could. So, the four of them, including the reluctant Vegeta, stood against the evil Emperor.
Well, such an unlucky alliance. Although you have significantly irritated me, the manner in which you fools have caused me to soil my hands is almost admirable. Congratulations. I don't do that often, you see.
Laugh while you can, Frieza, but I, Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, have now finally become the real Super Saiyan.
Well, let's see about that, shall we?
As they then attacked him from every single angle, the Emperor then realized that he actually had to put in some effort into fending them off. That was a first in a very, very, very long time. So, to not waste any more of his time, he then transformed and started wrecking everybody involved. Every trick that Lang, Vegeta, Gohan, or Krillin could throw at him was, well, unsuccessful. Still, help came in a familiar yet unexpected way. As they were about to be obliterated, a powerful beam hit Frieza's side. It was Piccolo. But he was different. There was something more about him, but something familiar as well. Shenron blinked twice. It was as if he was looking at his old friend Piccolo and his more recent friend Nail at the same time. Did they somehow become one? Dende also got near the battlefield to support them. As the Emperor started to mock the Namekian, he was absolutely shocked by the beating he had received. It was inconceivable for Vegeta. How were they becoming so strong so quickly? How can he... There was a way.
You there, Dragon Man, bald one. I need you to hurt me really, really badly.
Are you insane?
Shenron blinked twice, thinking that Vegeta was getting sick and tired of this all.
No. If I'm in mortal danger, we Saiyans receive a power increase. Hopefully Kakarot has as well. Then the Namekian brat would only need to heal me, and we might stand a chance.
Piccolo seems to be dealing all right with the threat, Vegeta. Krillin was scratching his head. Why would we need your help?
And I'm pretty sure that Frieza has shown us his full power.
And sure enough, after receiving some severe beatings from Piccolo, Frieza finally had enough and started to change into its next form. This then prompted Lang, Krillin, and Dende to go ahead with Vegeta's plan. Meanwhile, Piccolo was severely wounded by the newly transformed Frieza, which angered Gohan immensely, to the point of almost dealing considerable damage to the Emperor in his third form.
Another monkey? You are multiplying like... Well, no matter what, I can see that you're becoming stronger. I will just have to kill you with one shot. No more Mr. Nice Emperor.
And with that admission, Frieza then transformed into his final true form. His first action was to kill Dende, who had just finished healing Piccolo.
Oh, you monster!
Lang yelled and threw a ball of fire toward the Emperor, but that did not impress the evildoer one bit.
You see, I've just taken away your most valuable resource. You must be proud. I haven't gotten so involved like that in, well, never. May that be some solace before I eliminate all of you.
As he tried to blast Gohan, he was then taken away from harm's way by Vegeta, who seemed confident now that he would be able to defeat the Emperor this time around. Or the reality check he gets. It even makes Shenron feel kind of bad for him, and that's saying something, as this absolutely psychopathic tyrant was able to bring the prince to tears. When all hope seemed lost, Goku arrived.
More of you? Who is that?
Vegeta chuckled, with blood coming out of his mouth.
This, Frieza, this is the legendary Super Saiyan of legend that will bring you...
That was enough for the Emperor. He had heard enough. He'd been starting to get bored with the phrase the legendary Super Saiyan of legend, and all of the nonsense that Vegeta was spitting out of his mouth. And just like that, the Prince of All Saiyans was at death's door. Before he slipped away into the ether, he revealed all that he knew about Frieza, about the destruction of the Saiyan race and all the servitude that they had to suffer. Shenron was quite sure that even without the Emperor's supervision, the Saiyans would have been up to no good, but seeing Vegeta in that state did not bring him joy. And after a short while, Vegeta was no more. And as such, the duel of the ages, Goku versus Frieza, had begun. And it surpassed everything that Shenron had seen in all the centuries of his existence. Initially, the two of them were quite evenly matched, much to the Emperor's surprise. He thought he'd finally got the jump on everybody, but nope. And not only that, but the ways in which the Saiyan tried to outsmart him were rather novel. Sadly, it quickly turned out that Frieza was only using a tiny fraction of his overall power, and when he powered up to 50%, the tables suddenly turned. Even Kaioken times 10 proved to be unsuccessful. But still, there was one more thing Goku could do. He could use the Spirit Bomb. But he needed Frieza completely not focusing on it for that to happen. Well, that meant that the rest of the fighters had then decided to task themselves with this most dangerous of jobs. Though Frieza was hardly amused by their efforts, of course. Piccolo's special beam cannon? Avoided. Krillin's Destructo Disc? Blasted away. Gohan's Masenko? Hardly even a scratch. Shenron's telekinesis and attempts to throw trees at him? Maybe one of them could have been Ginyu, he had no idea, but no. Hardly a challenge, a trifle. Still, it was stalling for time, and meant the Emperor was completely unfocused on what Goku was doing. All the while, the Spirit Bomb continued to grow, and before Frieza realized exactly what was happening, the orb of purifying energy had struck him, seemingly vanquishing him. Was it over? Well, it seemed like it was over. They had done it. They had ended the scariest villain in the universe. Well, not quite. As a powerful explosion struck both Piccolo and Lang, they were thrown away like ragdolls. And after that, he went for Krillin, exploding the full monk in an instant. Frieza was unstoppable. But he'd made one final mistake. He had gone after Goku's friends. Something changed in the air. Anger like nothing that Shenron had ever seen before. It was growing inside of his Saiyan comrade, and he had transformed. This truly was the legendary Super Saiyan of legend. But still, they all had to evacuate, as Goku had ordered them to do so. Before he and Gohan had been able to move Piccolo out of the way, who got the larger brunt of the explosion, he could see something resembling fear in Frieza's eyes that he had never seen before. Then, he felt a familiar pull. Something was calling him back to Earth, like what happened with Garlic. It moved him there in an instant. All the walls and limitations were cracked. He was himself again, looking at Mr. Popo, with one wish in mind: to bring back everyone killed by Frieza and his men. He could feel their bodies returning, that they were living and breathing again. Even Guru, who had perished due to grief, had experienced the revival, the miracle of life once more. He took one last look at the duel between Goku and Frieza. He knew that his friend would win. Meanwhile, everyone else, the Namekians, Gohan, Bulma, even Vegeta, were now safe and sound on Earth. Everyone's heart stopped when Kami's homeworld exploded, as it was generally thought that Goku had perished with it. But Shenron was sure that his friend wasn't gone. And when the Dragon Balls on Porunga's world were active again to be able to bring him back, Lang came up with an idea. He proposed to the new Elder Mori an idea about a new Namekian-esque being that appeared on Earth. Massive, burly, and insanely strong.
Hello, Porunga. Nice to finally speak with you, face to face,
Shenron smiled.
A cousin! So you are the one who has caused this. I must admit, this isn't what I expected. But I do see that you have some experience.
I believe we can both benefit from this. And after we reform Namek,
You can guard your planet better. The two quickly became friends and trained together with Piccolo. Whilst Porunga wasn't exactly used to his body, his natural potential was even greater than Shenron's. They didn't want to risk another threat rising, so they spent the remaining time on this planet before Namek had fully returned on getting stronger. Little did they know, an opportunity to test their strength would arrive really soon. Frieza, resilient as he was, hadn't completely perished with Namek, and together with his father, they had been plotting revenge against the denizens of Earth. Not only that, but the future was going to bring even darker clouds towards the world. But still, our friends would get some unexpected help from another timeline. But as of now, there is no threat. Yet. Only two dragons focused on being their best selves to serve their people. But the clock was ticking for both of them. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. The demise of Frieza felt liberating to everyone involved. I mean, after the evil Galactic Emperor had been defeated, what more was there to worry about? Well, there was Goku's fate, which was, at this point, a little bit uncertain, but Shenron believed that wherever his friend was out there, he must be doing something important. The last time he caught a glimpse of him, his friend, was on some distant planet, getting some kind of training of sorts. It might come in handy in future, the Dragon Man thought. Porunga's second batch of wishes included giving himself a new form, reviving Chaozu and Tenshinhan, and finally recreating Namek for its inhabitants. They would get said home with the next wish on either of the dragons, which gave them an extra 6 months to spend on Earth. And during that time, the two, Porunga and Shenron, became very good buddies, though their personalities were considerably different.
Do you question your role? Once you have the body and the mortal perspective?
Lang shifted his head during one of their training sessions between himself, Porunga, and Piccolo. The larger of the two laughed loudly.
Not really. It is weird, I give you that. Now with my new master being in charge, I don't have any issue with serving the people of Namek and rewarding their greatest warriors.
What about the time thing?
Shenron lowered his voice.
What time thing?
He was clearly very tactless and didn't know how to regulate humanoid voices.
You know, when you start experiencing time, you start to see how impermanent everything feels. Even if we don't age, all the things and people we care about around us will be gone someday. Memories vanishing. I can only remember important things without being able to exactly recall a day from the last week. Things are moving very fast for me.
Oh, you think way too much about that. You are still a dragon at your core. You're just watching everything from a closer perspective,
Porunga said, throwing a few punches that almost cost Shenron his balance. The leader of the dragons sighed.
That's the thing. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not quite human. I'm not quite dragon.
You want my advice? Just focus on the stuff you're good at. I'm good at fulfilling wishes and punching people, as we have discovered. That is a good thing.
Would you be pleased if someone like Frieza got that wish?
These are the rules and stipulations, my friend. If our creators allowed that to happen, they should be ready to live with the consequences, should they not?
Piccolo, who had been completely silent throughout this entire exchange, finally decided to speak up.
I think it's up to you to decide, Shenron. You're more than the intentions somebody made you with. And trust me, I know something about that.
Porunga laughed.
Not good, Nail. Planting rebellious thoughts in the mind of our friend.
Stop calling me Nail.
He is part of you. You are both Piccolo and Nail. Just as he is, both a dragon and a man. Can he walk two paths?
Porunga gave them a toothy grin.
I guess we better find out then.
Still, despite the Namekian dragon poking holes in their logic or testing them in some way, they did enjoy their mutual time spent together. It was a challenge on both a physical and a mental level. They knew they would miss him once he was back on Namek with his people, but such was the nature of things. People came and went. The time to say goodbye, though, was nearing mercilessly. And that did not help Shenron with his fear at all of things being temporary. It wasn't paralyzing by any means, it was just existentially chilling. But still, the fateful day did come, and it was time for Shenron and Porunga to say their goodbyes.
Well, I hope you'll remember what we have learned together, my friend.
The Namekian dragon grinned.
I will try. Take care of your people. They're going to need you now more than ever. Oh, I will. Also, maybe someday you can visit us.
Shenron smiled.
With how the planet is hidden right now, that would require a wish to do so.
Porunga shrugged.
Well, then you'll have to convince one of your friends to ask for it, or maybe spend some time venturing the stars through space and maybe get a little bit lost, if you know what I mean. Either way, it was an honor spending time with you, cousin.
Likewise. And with that, Porunga transformed back into his draconic self and teleported himself and the Namekians back to their new world. Shenron, meanwhile, felt incredibly uneasy. It had been some time since he last spoke properly with Kami, and they hadn't really met up after his resurrection. He wasn't called to the lookout or anything like that. He wasn't particularly needed, he thought. His training with his dragonkin had took over so much, but now that it was all done, he felt a little bit aimless, honestly. But that did not last for long though, because a mere few weeks after the Namekians left, our heroes, including Shenron, felt a familiar, ominous aura. And this time, it was even stronger. Somehow, can't explain why, Frieza had returned. Lang, together with Piccolo, had met up with the remaining Dragon Team members on the planet at a place north of West City called the Northern Wastelands. Sometimes Shenron thought that the Earthlings should get a little bit more creative with the names of geographical landmarks. He thought there wasn't really much innovation in that front, but still. He had no time to dwell on the nomenclature of land, as Vegeta revealed that this time Frieza would not be here alone, as this time he would be accompanied by his father, King Cold, the true grey eminence of the Frieza Force. Which, of course, made Shenron and Piccolo very glad that they had been training extensively for the last 6 months. Just as the two had arrived and witnessed the landing of the ship that had been carrying the two tyrants, a new challenger appeared, one completely unrecognizable to all. A young man dispatched the soldiers quickly, accompanying Frieza and his father without much of an issue at all. This had been an extensively huge shock for everyone involved, as the individual didn't even seem to be threatened by the Emperor himself. It felt like he'd been completely running the entire thing on easy mode.
He's either very brave or very stupid.
Piccolo crossed his arms, not entirely impressed with the bravado on display.
And clearly hiding his true power. There's no way that we couldn't have detected someone who had dispatched so many Frieza soldiers so easily.
Shenron was giving a beady eye to the young man, not reacting to the taunts thrown at him by Frieza in his new cybernetic body. That or those who died on Namek were the main ones. Krillin tried to sound optimistic. Maybe they were just, somewhere else.
I'd like to remind you that I hunted a good bunch of them, bold one,
Vegeta muttered. Their bickering was then interrupted by the ease with which the young man avoided Frieza's attack. And his transformation into a Super Saiyan. Yeah, that would do it. For Krillin, Gohan, and Shenron, there was no doubt. Even though Vegeta seemed to be in constant denial, there was another Super Saiyan. And it wasn't Vegeta. And this one might be even stronger than Goku, as he cut Frieza in half with a single strike of his sword and blew away the remains. And soon after this, he agreed to show King Cold his sword, just to show the evildoer that he posed no real threat to him whatsoever, and disposed of him in an even more timely manner. The invasion ended before it officially began, actually, leaving everyone stunned. And after noticing everyone, the young man smiled, being much more at ease and happy to see some friendly faces.
Hey, Goku's gonna arrive in about 2 hours. Let's meet him here together, okay?
Was this young man their friend's friend? Okay, well, that felt hopeful. Maybe he was a new student the Saiyan had acquired on his journey through the stars, and they decided to meet up here back on Earth. If so, Shenron could only imagine how powerful Goku had become, if Frieza could just see that. Any attempts at getting anything from the boy, though, in terms of clues about his identity, had proven to be rather fruitless. But still, Lang couldn't feel ill intent from the individual, as if he had a good reason not to reveal his identity. And sure enough, in almost exactly 2 hours, Goku had arrived on the planet. Man, could this kid see the future or something? Well, just wait, folks. But Goku seemed to be as surprised as everyone by this mysterious visitor, so okay, he hadn't met Goku before, so who the hell was he? But before everyone could greet their friend, the mysterious stranger asked for some time alone with Goku. Initially, they just, from what they could see, were testing out their strength and Super Saiyan forms, comparing the size of their levels. Seeing them both next to each other cemented the idea of this newcomer truly being a Saiyan, which angered Vegeta even more. Piccolo, though, looked toward Lang.
Should we listen in? You know I can use my hearing. I'm not sure if you can. He asked for secrecy, Piccolo.
Shenron shook his head.
And we'd only just met him. Better safe than sorry.
So Piccolo decided to listen in. And the dragon really didn't like this, but it wasn't like Piccolo could just turn off his hearing or anything. That's why he took a deep breath and reluctantly listened in. What he learned from that was more than he signed up for. Time was coming back at him with a vengeance. It turned out that this boy, Trunks, as he was called and chose to identify himself as, was from the future. And not just any future, but a very bleak one at that, where almost everyone that they knew had died due to a new threat that hadn't yet graced this world. Would this cycle ever end, thought Shenron? Apparently, some adjacent Red Ribbon Army scientists had built some kind of powerful android machines that had destroyed almost every fighter on the planet, with Goku himself succumbing not to them, but a mysterious heart virus he gathered in space. And not only that, but Trunks himself was the son of Bulma and Vegeta. Both Bulma and Vegeta could feel Lang's stare on both of them, which prompted the prince to react.
What are you looking at, you overgrown lizard? Nothing.
Shenron coughed loudly. Well, how did that happen, he thought. Well, these mortals were weird. They're confusing. And not only that, but part of Shenron felt as if some sort of natural law had been broken. On one hand, he appreciated that this boy had traveled all the way to the past to try and save them from their certain doom, trying to give them a fighting chance at least. But on the other hand, speaking as from something that used to be non-corporeal, should mortals have that kind of power? Wasn't that a sin against time itself? But then again, it meant that time was not undefeatable as Lang started to worry. His existential crisis was coming back again. But their original fate was to die for some mechanical menace. He couldn't let that happen. This hardly seemed fair, thought Shenron, and it spiraled the dragon down into an even fouler mood. Goku is given the heart medicine, and Piccolo decides to tell everyone the abridged version, just omitting the details about Trunks' parentage, which in the long run could make this weird pairing not happen. So that was a good decision in Shenron's book. Yeah, don't let that happen. Also, Bulma, being the pretty sane and grounded person that she was, suggested that maybe they could just simply seek out the laboratory where the androids were created and just destroy them before they get the chance to attack and inflict any harm upon the world. But Vegeta protested this, saying it would take too long and take up valuable training time, meaning that Lang rolled his eyes. They could just simply wish on him and they could gain access to him in his dragon form and he could maybe find them, yet no one even tried to defend Bulma's idea. But deep down, Shenron knew exactly why. These mortals, wanted to test themselves out against a brand new threat. It was one of the traits of the Saiyans, and let's be honest, it had rubbed off onto the human Z-fighters as well, that they liked risking the fate of the planet for their own personal strength and gains. But on the other hand, they had more time to train, so maybe some classical methods would work in solving the problem, just hit them really hard. Especially how complicated this thing had already become because of the introduction of time travel. Maybe the wish could complicate things as well, maybe even more, spiral into something that could haunt them, and maybe unravel the entire dimension that they are living in already. And Shenron wasn't fully sold on the idea anyway, but at least he now had some kind of goal. He was no longer aimless, so that was something. This time between Goku, Gohan, Piccolo, and himself. And during these more peaceful times, Chi-Chi decided that the three of them, that is her husband, the Namekian, and the dragon, should maybe get driver's licenses. And surprisingly, he was the only one to pass his driving test on the first go, which he commemorated with a lovely photo. During his free time, he decided to create his own little album, using some of the pictures that he had taken over the years, and most importantly, finally drudging up all the photos that he had taken on his Namekian visit, and that means Gigi could actually see them. She'd been longing to. This was his way of winning, in a way, keeping those small moments away from the merciless temporal grasp. The following 3 years were unusually happy, despite the threat looming over everybody. Shenron had still been avoiding Kami, and the Guardian himself really didn't seem to be trying to force his presence for the lookout. It was like he was keeping his distance deliberately. But still, Lang, who now was openly calling himself Shenron, as people eventually discovered, had a chance to also train with different kinds of Z-fighters outside of the main group. He especially wanted to help out Yamcha with his self-esteem, having had that little tete-a-tete during the Saiyan saga, as he believed that this young man could do with some help in that department. He remembered his wish about reviving every victim of King Piccolo back in the day, not only his closest friends, and he decided that he could really do with some motivation and personal time. He even shared some of his techniques with him, but Piccolo was a little skeptical about the dragon taking the bandit in as his protege. But it had turned into a really good working relationship, and he even joined in with some of the more advanced training sessions that they had. They had a lot of time, but it did eventually pass, and May the 12th of age 767 was upon them. Allegedly, the androids were supposedly meant to show up on an island not too far away from South City. Again with the boring names. So the Z-fighters decided to split up and patrol it in order to better cover the grounds. Shenron decided to go with his new student in order to boost his confidence. And sure enough, the two of them did spot a duo of suspicious-looking fighters with baggy pants, not really fitting with the rest of the city at all and causing some problems. An old man and a large jester of sorts. Well, they of course went straight for Yamcha, and by some miracle mistaking him for Goku, yet the young man was able to fend for himself long enough for Shenron to join in the fight, and of course, save him from getting a hole in the chest. The geezer, who seemed to be more aware of the two's identities, seemed slightly shocked by this level of defiance and defense, because Lang was able to fend him off and his clown quite skillfully. In all of the chaos, they decided to go for the city's infrastructure to force both Shenron and Yamcha to use this opportunity to save the citizens of the island, and maybe these two could make a quick escape. But still, all of this noise had attracted the attention of the other Z-fighters, who then started to give a wild chase after these two machines. So much for cover. Shenron, though, was content. Maybe defying fate was possible. Maybe he can do even more impossible things along the way. After all, today he had already proven that he was capable of such feats. He had proven that a machine could feel fear. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Wait, Masako, surely we're not done yet. We've barely scratched the surface of the android saga. Is Shenron's story really done already? Well, just you wait, my friends. We shall have more to discuss come the end of this chapter and how things go from here. But for now, let's get you clued up a little bit with what's been going down. In the last part, following Frieza's downfall, the Z-fighters including Goku find themselves in a time of transition and many unknowns. In their new human bodies, Shenron and Porunga, or as many of you fine folks out there have dubbed him as Porungai, love it, spend time on Earth where they develop a special friendship, a bond, whilst talking about the usual existential problems and dealing with their duties as dragons, as well as trying to understand the concept of time, which until recently they really didn't have a firm understanding of. The more comfortable Porunga, seemingly not bothered with such worries, feels more right in his position. The more he tells Shenron to play to his strength, the more confident the Earth Dragon becomes. But they are still preparing for an unknowable future and its obstacles by a combination of intellectual discussions and physical training. It's what many non-corporeal dragons do, and the physical training part is good as well. But simply put, Porunga tells Shenron just to chill out and roll with it as best as he can. Embrace the dragon within him, because that's one thing that they don't share with others. When King Cold and his son Frieza unexpectedly return though, the peace is broken, but thankfully, only for a couple of minutes, because a young man whose identity remained a mystery initially stepped in, and he exposes a bleak future in which the formidable androids wipe out the majority of Earth's protectors. Everyone on the team, including Shenron, is training hard for the impending android invasion, and Shenron uses his best time to assist Yamcha in developing his self-esteem and becomes further entangled with the lives and tribulations of Earth's defenders, which in a way he finds quite useful. And while these years are filled with both preparation, training, and personal growth, Shenron does make a little bit of a photo album to remember all of the times that he have had here and on Namek. But despite all of this, the day comes when they do have to face the androids, and thankfully, Yamcha does not succumb to the same thing and fate that he does in the original story, thanks to Shenron's handiwork. But it is time that the confrontation with these androids does begin, and begin with much fervor. As the Dragon team soon accosts the good doctor and his clown thing, Shenron right now felt confident. He and Yamcha had managed to survive their initial encounter with the enemy, the one that the future boy had told them would be the downfall of Earth. Well, all that training these last 3 years had been worth it. Yamcha was exceedingly grateful for his dragon buddy who to have stepped in at the last second before the doctor almost put a hole in him. I could swear that he was gonna do what Piccolo did to— Sorry, man.
Don't be. This is a good day. We can be assured that Earth will not succumb to— Doesn't Goku look a little exhausted to you, Yamcha?
Yamcha looked at Goku and noticed that he was sweating a little bit.
Well, it is quite hot around here. No thanks to the androids setting most of the city on fire.
He's just a little bit toasty, yeah.
I'm aware of that, but something's off.
The Dragon Man watched Goku closely as he confronted the old man personally, who supposedly was Dr. Gero. He seemed a little off balance, Goku. His ki was subtly quivering, something that the doctor seemingly couldn't sense, like it was somewhat unstable. But before Shenron could properly assess the situation and the cause of all of this, Gero had pulled out yet another diversionary tactic and shot copious I-beams in all directions in one last-ditch effort to try and distract the Dragon team into getting what he wanted, a battle with Son Goku, and they rushed away for the next part of this encounter. Tenshinhan and Piccolo scowled.
Cowards! Goku, let's go!
Yeah, coming.
And they all set off in mad pursuit. However, what made it difficult was that the androids were hard to pinpoint because they didn't give off ki. But Piccolo's hearing, though, was a godsend, able to keep a vague idea of their vapor trails and the disruption of air thanks to the baggy pants. An unfortunate clothes selection indeed, but good to their advantage. With the Namekian leading the hunt, Shenron flew up to Goku and asked whether he was okay.
I'm fine, Shenron. Relax, buddy.
Did you take the medicine Trunks provided you?
Shenron was asking, and Goku had to think for a second and then—
Right. I was supposed to do that. Well, no wonder my chest's been kinda sore.
Shenron sighed.
Goku, how could you forget something important as this? Can you transmit still?
Goku, whose chest was starting to hurt a little more now, he was actively thinking about it, nodded gingerly.
Good. I order you to go home and take the medicine, and then rejoin us when you feel the effects have subsided.
Goku was reluctant, as a Saiyan, to do so.
I can't let you guys take the fall for me. I don't want to miss out this fight. And those crazy guys might do something even crazier without me there.
You should have thought of that before neglecting your medication.
Shenron, come on. I can handle this.
The twinges in his arm and jaw had arrived.
Go! Now! While you still can!
Goku realized his friend had a point and was thinking about him, and focused as best as he could to transmit back home before he fully lost his stamina over the ocean.
Shenron? What's going on? Where's Dad gone?
He's gone home, Gohan. He forgot to take the medicine, seemingly. The idiot.
What?
Said Gohan with shock.
I thought he had taken it. I thought he said... why would he...
My thoughts exactly.
They continued on in silence. Well, verbal silence. What a fool. said Piccolo in Shenron's mind. How could he be so stupid as to not take the thing that Future Kid said would solve the problem? I know. Right when we needed his Super Saiyan power the most, said Shenron. You think Vegeta or that Trunks will show up? I don't know, but we can't rely on either. We must do what we can. Suddenly, a ki blast interjected the group, which sent the signal that these two enemies had grown weary of this little game of cat and mouse, this dawdling, and when they subsequently landed, Gero and his assistant scanned the group.
Texas, where's Son Goku? You led us astray and allowed him to escape, didn't you? 19, scan the area for Son Goku and where he's hiding.
The clownbot surveyed the area and had to resort to his ultra-long-range scanners to detect the presence of Goku, having gained a close-up read on him.
3,000 kilometers due north, Mount Paozu Plains.
Gero's eyes widened.
What the? How did he get so far in mere minutes?
Piccolo smirked. There's a lot of things you don't know about us. Get used to it. Gero wagged his finger.
Au contraire, my green friend. I regret to inform you all that you are mistaken, Piccolo. We are well aware of your origins thanks to our scout vessels that have been tracking your every movement since Goku was but a wee child, right when he eviscerated my life's work and my own flesh and blood. Thanks to this research we have collated, we have calibrated our very matter to be more than powerful enough to fend off the likes of you and...
He turned to Shenron.
Your pet dragon.
Shenron was flabbergasted.
No, you are mistaken. I am but a human known as Shenlong.
Gero shook his head.
Inaccurate. That was your cover. You are inherently dragonborn, yet parade about this world as a human. What for, I care not. The realm of magic does not interest me. But the data you have acquired is rather interesting to factor into our research.
Shenron was getting a little bit nervous now.
What do we do, Piccolo?
He muttered.
I don't know. Sure, we bought Goku some time, but without a backup plan, well, I suppose we just gotta buy him even more.
Shenron and Piccolo stepped forward, along with Yamcha and then Gohan. Gero spotted Gohan walking forward and smirked.
What a shame! Indoctrinating a child into a battle-scarred existence, yet again. He has but of little strength from the data that we have gathered. Him being involved right now is pathetic of you all. Surely you would see sense.
Shenron was confused. Pathetic? How could Gohan's power be pathetic? He had been training with the kid for years now, and had found his power to be in quite impressive condition. It had grown more consistent. He was almost knocking on the door, in fact, of Super Saiyan at points. He just lacked that remaining spark that Goku has seemingly acquired on Namek at the loss of Krillin. Then Shenron was starting to think of stuff, and he then turned to 19.
You, android, answer me one question before you kill us.
Well, real sign of confidence, sir, buddy, muttered Yamcha. Gero nodded, granting permission.
When was the last record you have on us acquired?
19's eyes beeped red. Gero was quite curious himself, but he didn't show it.
Last known record is from age 763, the Saiyan attack.
Piccolo and Shenron looked at each other and smiled.
What a waste of a question. 19, kill them.
They then subsequently powered up, Yamcha and Gohan doing so as well, with also Tenshinhan and Krillin adding the assist. Together, the 6 fighters were lynching the android. Led by the 2 beasts of Namekian descent, 19 was completely unable to scan properly in order to make an adequate response. One swipe of his fists here was countered by a kick from over there, and vice versa. Even with all of this computational and physical power that was truly remarkable on its own, he was no match with this missing bit of data and good old-fashioned teamwork. Gero was looking concerned now, but relieved that nobody had jumped on him. 19 had served its purpose, he clearly thought. He was expendable, especially since he knew of 2 other entities in his laboratory that could definitely finish these fools off, regardless of his lack of information, proving to have been quite costly. He didn't want to have to do this, but he could. And as the group were distracted, Gero used this time to slink away and rush back to his laboratory. Piccolo then sensed an air pocket abruptly form and dissipate behind him, turning around in a break in the fight and saw that Gero was gone.
Damn it! He got away!
But then that led to 19 smacking him across the face and then grabbing his throat. Piccolo could sense his energy depleting all of a sudden. He couldn't explain why. Shenron, though, was able to throw 19 off seconds later, and Piccolo could feel the draining stop. That robot had some kind of absorption power. Well, fortunately for them, the cavalry did arrive a little bit too late for their liking in the form of Vegeta, who promptly took over the fight, showed that he had Super Saiyan now as well, and finished 19 off faster than the original story. After everybody had been beamed up, they had understood now that Gero had escaped while they were fighting 19, but was still feeling rather smug at having eliminated seemingly one of the androids that Trunks had warned them of, them not needing his help at all, and Vegeta barely had to lift a finger. Bulma then soon arrived and confirmed the identity of this android as Gero and the location of his lab. Shenron was then reminded of his early desire to finish off the Doctor before allowing all this to happen, but the damage was done. With this information, they rushed to the location, but were too late to counter the Doctor. The door was firmly shut. The Doctor was in. Trunks had since joined them, and Vegeta's arrogance was at the forefront here, telling the future boy that his services weren't needed.
I took down that tub of lard single-handedly, boy. The crotchety old fool will mean nothing when I get my hands on him.
What? Old fool? Tub of lard? Well, those aren't the androids that I know about.
Shenron looked back to Trunks.
What do you mean, Trunks? They're not?
No, the two androids I was referring to look like regular teenagers. Not what you described, Vegeta. Whatever happened, seemingly, time has rewritten itself, shaken itself up. Oh no. Without a moment to spare, Trunks powered up to Super Saiyan and blasted the door into pieces, only to find his suspicions accurate. Those two teenagers were right there. A headless Gero was there too, and then suddenly, another figure that neither of them recognized, much taller than the other two. With red hair, green armor, and human-like features, this trio were androids 16 through 18. Yes, they were indeed powerful. Very powerful. Although 16 did not engage in the subsequent fracas, 17 and 18 were more than happy to have a little bit of argy-bargy with the group, completely trouncing them all, even breaking the prince's arm at one point thanks to 18, and were only spared of their lives thanks to the human side of these androids getting in the way. They grew bored. The black-haired one especially. He was tired of fighting these guys because Goku wasn't with them, he wasn't present, and he wanted to go and look for him, as his program dictated. But instead of flying to his location like any killing machine would normally do, he wanted to take his time and drive there, find a car. Krillin did his best to try and stop them, but all he got in return was a peck on the cheek from 18 and away from them both as the trio walked off, leaving everybody reeling, including Piccolo. He immediately flew off, trying to figure things out, with Shenron accompanying him, sensing distress, but choosing not to bring it up to the others. They were headed for the lookout. Piccolo had said nothing to Shenron, but he had reluctantly accepted his presence after all that they had been through. He would understand, maybe. Kami knew they were coming, and this would be the first time since he had been wished back to Earth that he would look at Shenron directly in the face, them both having seemingly avoided one another. The tension was palpable, as it was becoming clear that Piccolo's desire to fuse, like he had done with Nail or Namek, was not something that was going to happen readily. Kami had misgivings. He was not entirely sure whether he could go along with this, but he was being resistant in explaining why. Then he told them about the evil power that he had felt since he had returned to reality those years ago. It had been skulking the planet quietly for some time, and steadily growing in strength until now, it had become too big to ignore. Both Piccolo and Shenron were horrified.
Yet again,
with Shenron speaking this in venom.
You keep things from us. You are supposed to be the guardian of this planet, Kami, and yet you have done nothing until we're already dealing with another planet-destroying force. Why did you not say any of this to us? We might have taken it down sooner.
Kami was looking deeply sorrowful.
I know. I have failed you as guardian. I should have said something, but you were all focusing on the impending threat coming that I thought that would have been more pressing, and I thought I would have been able to handle. I was wrong, and now it is too late to stop either of them.
Piccolo stood up. It's not if you fuse with me. Kami looked at Piccolo. Don't you understand, Piccolo? That would mean that the Dragon Balls would no longer exist, and Shenron would lose access to his eternal power forever. Shenron looked at them both. I don't think so. What? Said Kami. That time I was without it. I was able to acquire strength without it anyway. I was free in a way. And that was when your essence was well and truly dead. But if you were fused with Piccolo and Nail, your essence could still be alive, but reborn as a fused Namekian. I sensed that things might go differently to what I previously experienced. And who knows, the Dragon Balls might still exist, without us needing another Namekian. There's only one way to find out, Kami. I would like to become Earth's next guardian. Both Kami and Piccolo were shocked.
What? No, I can't let you do that, Shenron,
said a sad Kami.
My purpose was to grant you freedom to not be beholden to Earth's wants, so that you may observe and mingle amongst the populace. Be human. I do not wish you to be tied down to the lookout like this.
And I have done that with great fervor, my friend. But what has also become clear is that even then, I was still acting as some sort of guardian. I may as well wear the gowns and take up the things that go with the job. And besides, if this works, then I can truly make sure the Dragon Balls are most definitely safe and never to be used by anyone who plans to use them for ill intent. Please, Kami, we have not much time to dawdle on this. I wish to take up your mantle. He was stunned, but also impressed. He smiled warmly. You have really embraced your humanity, Shenron. I could never imagine you doing anything like this before. You have made me proud. He shook his hand, and as he did so, the gowns of the Guardian transferred to Shenron, and he was handed the staff that came with it. Mr. Popo will teach you everything you need to know. Please be more of an active Guardian than I was. But at least doing this, I can provide some sort of defense to atone for my failures. Live a good life, Shenron. Thank you. Shenron nodded. And thank you, Kami, for giving me such a wonderful gift. Yes, it had been born from selfishness initially, but the humanity in him saw the good intents in Kami, despite the buffoonery. And as he fused with Piccolo Kami to form the legendary Super Namekian of legend, to go after that evil menace down on Earth that had been growing in the shadows, Shenron knew something, that his job may have been far from over, but it had also changed considerably. A small hand patted him on the side of his new gown. Welcome, Master, said Mr. Popo, smiling at him. I have much to discuss with you and so little time. Shenron looked to the edge of the lookout. My friends down there, will I ever get to? Of course you may, Shenron. But first and foremost, can you still sense the Dragon Balls, now that Kami is fused with Piccolo? He touched his head, wondering if his horns were still present. They were. He closed his eyes, extending his reach across the planet, trying to sense where the Dragon Balls were located, since they had not been collected yet. They were still there, not dormant. They pinged back to him clear as day. It had worked. The plan had worked. The Dragon Balls were now no longer dependent on either Piccolo or Kami. He was now fully in control of them. And he was now the guardian of this planet. He could now truly protect Earth the way he knew best, as a human. And that's where we end things for this particular part of the story. Because don't worry, folks, we shall return to this story in due course, but with a slightly different twist to it. Call this an Act 1 of sorts, because Act 2 will come rather soon. But thank you for joining us for this section of Shenron's adventure. See you in 2024.